time has happened. So today I want to deal with you one of the most important Rambans. Every week is one of the most important Rambans. This is the Ramban about the sin of the golden calf. Okay? And I copied the Ramban with Hebrew and English because I think it'll help us go through it. It's also a longer Ramban, so I'm going to hand it out in a minute or so. But I want to just look at the story in the Chumash first, then we'll look at the Ramban. Okay? So it's chapter 32. It's one of the most, unusual kinds of stories. The Jewish people just stood at Sinai, received the Ten Commandments. Moshe's up there on Har Sinai to come down with the Ten Commandments, and suddenly, boom, they're worshiping a golden calf. How could they slip from so high to so low? And in fact, the Ramban points out, and it's not the Ramban we're going to do, that the whole book of Sefer Bereshis, and I think I've said this, is a story of Sefer Gula being redeemed from Egypt, where they were on the 49th level of Tumah, minus 49. They zip up to, plus 49, which is at Har Sinai. They sin with the golden calf. They fall off the edge of the cliff. And the rest of the Sefer Shmos is building the Mishkan, which is to return HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shekhinah to the presence of the Jewish people. And they reach the heights that they were at Har Sinai with the Mishkan built there and the Shekhinah there at the Mishkan. So that's the basic theme of how what Sefer Shmos is called out, and why it's sometimes called, in some Sfarim, it's called Sefer Geula. Okay, in the same way that Vayikra is called, Toras Kohanim. Okay, it's called Toras Kohanim. Sefer Devarim is called Mishnah Torah. Sefer Bamidbar is called, what's Sefer Bamidbar called? It's actually called Sefer HaPekudim, counting. It's actually called Numbers, which is what it's called in English. And Sefer Bereshis is either sometimes called Sefer Yetzirah, or Sefer Yashar, Sefer Yesharim, which deals with the Avos who are Yashar. So there are all these secondary names. So this is called Sefer Gula. Anyway, so how could they do this? Let's just kind of zip through the story, and then we'll take time to go through the Ramban. Chapter 32. Okay, so verse number 1, Moshe does everything, he's up there, and God gives to Moshe the 2 tablets of testimony, the stone tablets, chapter 32. This is the last pasuk in chapter 31, and beginning in chapter 32, the people see that Moshe doesn't come down. People see that Moshe is late. Why do they think he's late? Because they miscalculated the date, because they don't know what happened to him. Did the people actually know he was going to be up there for 40 days? We assume yes, but how do we know that? It may be they did not know he was going to be there for 40 days. It is 40 days, but only because the Torah tells us, Vayhi Moshe Bahar Aboim Yom Baboim Laila. But we don't know that they knew he was going to be there 40 days. So after 10 days, they begin to lose hope. Where is Moshe? Right? Or they knew it was 40 days and they miscalculated. They thought he was going to come down in the morning, but really he came down the next day. Each day needed to be a full day, not the partial days. Like Nebuch, when we count Shiva, we count partial days. But sometimes in Judaism, we count a full day. Shabbos has got to be a full day. You can't say I did part of Shabbos and therefore I'm finished with Shabbos. In the same way that you do with Avelos, a partial of a day is considered a part of a day. The first day is a part day and the last day of Shiva is a partial day. So that doesn't always work.
Maybe they thought, maybe 40 was a number which is mekubal for that kind of thing. Like if somebody disappears, we wait maximum till 40.
Okay, possibly. Right.
Like in yesterday's lecture, 150, 15 months.
15 months.
The husband doesn't come home.
Yeah, okay. There's a medrash that says that the Satan showed them a picture of Moshe lying dead on top of Har Sinai. They showed a video, some kind of vision that they could see, that they realized, they thought that was it. Of course, it wasn't real, it wasn't true, and therefore they began to lose hope about Moshe. So what do the people do? They come to Aaron, and they say to Aaron, Kumasilano Elohim Asher Chulufanu, make for us, and they translate it as gods who'll go before us. Moshe Ish, who took us out from Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. Aaron says, Parkun is me'azahav Asher bi'aznain l'shechem, bring me the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, and your children, and your daughters, Vavi Olai, and they do that. And they bring it to Aaron. Aaron takes it from the people, and what does Aaron do? He puts it into Vayotzer Aso Bacheret. He puts it into some kind of cloth. Vayaseh Egel Masecha, and he makes it into a molten or a fashioned calf. Vayomer Elach Yisrael Shalucha Mersayim. This is the God, your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt. Okay, so what are they doing? What's the sin of the golden calf? Well, first of all, who does the sin of the golden calf? Aaron. How could Aaron comply with this building a golden calf? and what actually was Aaron's intention, and what would the people actually suddenly want some other God, and how could they want another God when they just saw God at Har Sinai? Those are obviously basic questions everybody has to deal with. We all agree? Any other questions?
Yeah.
I mean, how could they suddenly change their minds? So, and Aaron sees he's got a golden calf, and they suddenly believe in the golden calf. It looks like they're believing in the golden calf as a god. They build the Mizbeach, and Aaron says, tomorrow is Chag L'Shem Achar. Tomorrow is the Chag for Hashem. And they get up in the morning, they bring Olod and Shlamim, and they're sitting to eat and drink, and they come up Vaykum L'Tzachek, and they get up to translation of Revel, or Revel. How do you pronounce that? Revel, I believe. Revel? Okay, they're going to have a good time. There's all kinds of looseness and promiscuity. That's what L'tzachek. L'tzachek, I often point out, is a term that has sexual connotations. Right? Yitzchak was called Yitzchak because Sarah said, Kol Hashemay Yitzchak li, not going to laugh with me, but laugh at me because I'm an old lady and I gave birth to a child. And I conceived the child in a sexual fashion. So L'tzachek, in this case as well, has some kind of looseness that was associated with rites of worship that probably also had some kind of sexual connotations, which was not uncommon, by the way, for other pagan rites, that there was also sex that got involved with it in different forms. What is the term in the Torah for prostitute and male and female prostitutes? Yes, that's one term. Good, excellent. There's another term, Kadesha and a Kadesh. Now they're called Kadesh means Kadosh. So there were many times holy prostitutes that were sanctified to work for certain temples who were associated with them. Believe it or not. And that's why the term says, you should make your son into a Kadesha Kadesha, because this is what other nations actually did. So, if it sounds radical, it's what actually worked.
Maybe it was also an implication that Yitzchak is the son of
Avimelech. Right, that was part of the sexual, that's all part of sexual cynicism going on there.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Tzchok, L'tzachek, and all this term is really not just about happiness. That would be more of a schok with a sama, with a sin. Schok. L'schok mahu oseh, l'schok mahu mahol, says Koheles. But with a tzadi, usually has this other implication, a secondary implication. So
I want to add a question to the list of questions.
Yeah.
Aaron threw the gold into and out came a gold calf, right?
Well, that's what the Medrash says. That's not how they translate it here. How do they translate?
From that Medrash, so it looks like Hashem was participating. Was
correct.
Let it happen.
Correct. Or the Medrash says actually, how did it happen? Everybody know the rest of the Medrash. This is the way we had this. We talked about the other day. We were learning, I forget what, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants certain things to happen, you frustrate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It may not be for good. So Moshe sees this in Egypt, sees the kids being plastered into the walls of the pyramids, and he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how can you do this to this child? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I have my reasons. And Moshe still davens. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, we're not going to put this kid into the pyramid, but you'll see what will happen to him. This kid becomes Micha. Micha is like a Dasan and Aviram kind of figure. Micha, when Moshe takes the Shem HaMaforash, when puts it into the Nile River and the bones of Joseph come up to the surface, Micha grabs that tas, this plate with the name of Hashem, keeps it, and when they come to build the golden calf, he takes the holy name of Hashem, throws it into the mold, and the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shem HaMaforash, pops out the calf. So it may not be Hashem, it may have been someone who's using the powers of Hashem in a negative fashion. That's Micha. Okay, that's this Micha individual. So, but the terminology it's used is they translate Vayasam Oso Bacheret. He put it into a, how do they translate it? Bound it into a cloth. I'm not even quite sure how to even translate that, what that means. So, and why would Aaron do this? So forget whether it suddenly pops out and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a role in this. Why would Aaron do that? Why would he not just say, just give it to me and I'll do it tomorrow? So once again, it looks like a stalling tactic. And the next question I have, and I'll answer the other questions, in the end of verse number 5, what does Aaron say? Vayikra Aaron Vayomar, Chag L'Shem Achar. Tomorrow is a holiday for whom? Doesn't see tomorrow is a holiday for the golden calf. And it's very clear when it spells out the name of Hashem, it's Yud Hey and Vav and Hey. It means Har Hashem. So, are they worshiping a golden calf, or are they worshiping still Hashem, or is Aaron worshiping one thing and the people worshiping something else? Not clear. So Moshe is up on Har Sinai, and Hashem says to him, you know what, the people have built a golden calf, and they have to go down. And Moshe comes down, okay, so we'll just, Hashem says to him in verse number 8, go down because people have turned away from the way I was told. They made they made for them a molten calf, and this is where the term about that you pointed out that there was a mold. Molten is usually a masecha, there's some kind of formed calf. They worshipped it, they bowed down to it, they brought sacrifices, and they said, they said, this is your God, O Israel, which brought you out from the land of Egypt. Now, did they actually believe this is the God that took them out of Egypt? Did they actually believe this is the God that took them out of Egypt? What was the calf made of? Made of gold. What was the gold made of? Where did they get the gold? From the jewelry. They ripped the jewelry out of their wives' and children's ears. This jewelry was not their God. They have this calf. The calf is made of the jewelry. The jewelry is sitting in the wife's ear the whole time. He's going to say, this is the calf. This is the God that took you out. This is the jewelry that sat in your wife's ear. This is the jewelry that sat in your children's ears and those rings. So what is he saying that this is the God that took you out? What kind of understanding is? And the Kadosh Baruch Hu is reflecting to Moshe what the people are saying down below. And Hashem says, I'm going to destroy the Jewish people. Moshe says, don't destroy the Jewish people. Remember Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't destroy the Jewish people. Verse number 15, just skipping through that discussion about Moshe and Hashem. Moshe comes down, and he's carrying the two tablets, and the tablets are made of Hashem's writing, and it's Michtav Elokim Hu. Chorus al Luchos. Moshe sees what's going on, and he sees Yoshua, and Moshe says, and Yoshua says there's a kol milchama. Moshe says, I don't know what it is, it's some kind of kol. Moshe gets close in verse 19, 20, 21, let's skip up to there. He sees the egel, he sees the calf, and he sees the dancing going on. Vayicharaf l'Moshe, vayashlech midavat haluchos, he throws the tablets down, vayishibertam tachas zahar, he breaks the tablets, and then what does he do? He takes the egel that they made, vayisro ba'esh, and he burns it in the fire. So when he burns in the fire, what happens? It melts down. It's no longer in the shape of a calf. Vayitchana the he takes this molten mass, which has been melted down. It's some kind of slab of gold. He grinds it until it's very thin, very fine. He throws it, spreads it out in the water, and he makes the Jewish people drink it, like a sota drinks the water. So why don't the people stop Moshe from breaking their God? This is their God. Moshe shows up. They have no problems against Moshe in other situations. How's it that Moshe shows up and suddenly is able to galvanize the people?
That shows that they only wanted the calf in Moshe's absence.
Right, so they only wanted the calf in Moshe's absence. Okay, which, by the way, tells us something about the calf. Maybe the calf is not about God. Maybe the calf is really about Moshe. If Moshe comes, then the whole bottom of the whole plot falls out. And then Moshe sits down and he says, what happened here? How do people do that? How do people make you do this? So Aaron is now going to tell Moshe, don't worry, everything is under control. You know these people, they're bad. And they said to me, in verse 23, the people said to me, we don't know what happened to Moshe. So I said, bring me gold. They gave me the gold, and this golden calf came out. And therefore, everything is okay, Moshe, not to worry. It's not as bad as you think. This is what I did. The people wanted a God. I made him a God, and here it is. How can Aaron be defending himself? Basically, that's what Moshe says. What did you do? He says, what I do? It's okay. It's not so bad. So something is not really clear, because whatever Aaron did, he looks like he's trying to exonerate himself, or at least reduce his culpability, but he's just making it worse. He's digging himself further into the hole. And Moshe sees the people are exposed. Aaron exposed them to disgrace. And then he calls the tribe of Levi, and they go up and down, they kill the people and everything afterwards. And then Moshe's going to have to go.
Which water is this?
I'm sorry?
He says, through the gold into the water. Which water is this? Just water that they had in canteens? That he poured the pieces in? Right.
Yeah,
there's
just
no
water.
river or something.
There's no, I don't know.
Or maybe
there is a river. Maybe there is some kind of oasis there.
Wow.
Probably an oasis at the bottom of the mountain. Go down. First you got to find Mount Sinai. First you have to identify Mount Sinai, then you can identify if there's an oasis or water nearby.
Right.
Okay, what makes an oasis?
This is in cups or in a spring or something?
Right, we don't know. Right, it's not clear where the water is coming from, but it's probably not that important. What makes an oasis, by the way? How do oases form in the desert? Anybody know the geology? Oases form when you have a rock formation. Basically, you've got a desert land. Don't think of desert like a Sahara desert, because that can be the same thing. But you just think of a land that's barren. As water, where does the water come from? It runs off when there's runoff. Well, when Israel has rain, the rainy season, there's all kinds of flash floods. Right, you read about this, you hear about this. The flash floods, especially in the wilderness, where there are valleys and gullies. And Nebuch last year there was a whole school trip that was caught in that, and the kids drowned. You remember this a year ago, like last May, correct? Because they were in such a narrow valley that they were climbing and going, and the water came down with such force. But the water keeps running. The water goes from the highest place to the lowest place. Sometimes you have geological formations underground, which are like rock, which hold the water. So when the water runs through and the water goes down, it eventually stops. Those are usually how oases start. If something is there, some geological formation is there to allow the oasis to retain the water. Sometimes there are underground springs. That can be another form of an oasis. Right? But there are oases all around, and if you drive through the Sinai Desert or the Sinai Peninsula, you will see where it looks barren, and suddenly you'll see palm trees. Once again, it's not Sahara Desert like sand, but it is fairly barren. It's barren with rocks. And nothing grows there, except now and then you will see the oases. Okay, so these are all the questions about what happens here in the Golden Calf. So here's my handout for you. Okay, this is actually, it's taken from, should be large enough to read. This is from this one, yeah, okay. And we're going to go through it, and the Ramban is actually a very good Ramban. Let me tell you what the Ramban's basic premise is before we get into it. The Ramban says that the sin of the Jewish people, this is Ramban and a number of other commentaries suggest this, Ramban is one of the more emphatic ones, the sin of the Jewish people here was not to create another God, like you normally read it, not to make even a representation of a God, or not to some commentaries think that they're worshiping this golden calf with Hashem. There was like a secondary God, an alternative God, or a combination with God, or rejection of God, or it's real. What is it really? It's really a replacement of Moshe Rabbeinu. And what did they need Moshe Rabbeinu for? What was the real need that they needed Moshe Rabbeinu for in a direct form, a direct need every day? Now you're going to talk about the Ten Commandments, but they got the Ten Commandments, or they heard the Ten Commandments, they got the law. What did they need Moshe for? What role does Moshe play? So one is the religious connection, the theological connection to Hashem. That's one reason. There is another reason. Because he's the theological connection to Hashem, he's the tour guide. He knows where the trip is going. He is the Moreh Derech. So the Ramban suggests that the whole lack that they begin to kind of freak out, that they don't know what to do, is because they've lost their Moreh Derech. Can you imagine you're traveling in the wilderness and you have the guide who knows the path and no one else knows the path, and suddenly he disappears? What are you going to do? How are you going to get ahead? So they create this form of now we have to explain why they make a calf and how they expect the form of an animal is going to be their Moreh Derech, but they'll have to do the Ramban. But the basic theme of the Ramban is they are looking to replace Moshe's ability to lead them in the desert, and Moshe's ability to lead them in the desert is because of his connection to Hashem. So they hope by building this kind of contraption, the contraption will be invigorated with some kind of divine inspiration, and will allow them be for them some kind of leader or some kind of intermediary that can show them the way to go. So there are questions in the Ramban's approach, one of which is why choose a calf and how do they expect to see that, but this is the basic approach, which explains a number of things, which explains why Aaron goes along with this, because it's not about building a God, it's about building a representation of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not right, it's wrong, but it's not as bad as it looked. It's also why Aaron is able to defend himself to Moshe. He says, Moshe, you weren't here. The people came to me and said, we don't know where Moshe is. So I built for them this kind of inspiration that they could actually relate to that until you came back. It also explains why Moshe comes back, suddenly the people abandon the calf. Moshe comes back, the people are finished with the calf. They never refer to the calf again. Moshe comes down, he takes the calf, nobody stops him. He burns the calf into scrap and gold. He chops it up into tiny little pieces, spreads it out in the water, makes the people drink from it. They don't have no use for it. It's worthless, because now they have Moshe Rabbeinu. So the advantage of the Ramban's approach, there are a number of disadvantages, but the advantage of the Ramban's approach, it explains how is it possible the people kind of slipped so far, and how could they suddenly reject Hashem if they just heard the words of Hashem 40 days before? Does that make sense? Well, I hope it makes sense, because that's... Right. So, what the Ramban will have to explain, can you just grab me a Tanakh? Any Tanakh will do? Yeah. So Ramban will have to explain why a calf or a cow or a bull, and why an animal, and what these really, and why specifically does this really all have to do with what they're creating? Okay. Where's the pasuk here? So, let me say, there are two premises I need to put in here, but I'm not sure if I should do it right yet. Maybe I'll do a little bit of the Ramban, then I'll give you the premises that he works with from Yechezkel and from Yirmiyahu, which is a little bit of semi-Kabbalah here. Okay. Where is this? Okay. Teshiyud. Okay. Teshiyud. Where is the I'll just find it. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Let's start the Ramban. They have the clouds, and the question is, are the clouds really functioning at this point as leading them, or have they not? Have they led them? They clearly led them to the Yam Suf. Have they now dissipated? Are they there to protect them, but they're not yet really leading them as they know? So that may be some of their concern as well. Okay, let's go into Ramban. Okay, so it says Ramban. This is page number 387, the left side of the first page. Okay, Asher Yachul Lefanenu, says the Ramban. So Elahut Harbe Ivu Lahem. They wanted many different gods, or they requested to have many different gods. They want, that's what they seem to be asking from Aaron. And he's actually quoting Rashi. Because Moshe, the person that took us out of Mitzrayim, and he was showing us the way to go. We don't know what happened to him. This is Ramban is paraphrasing Rashi. And therefore, we need now different gods to go before us. Lashon Rashi. This is what Rashi says. So Rashi seems to combine two different things, and the Ramban says that's why Ein Lashon Bechuvan. Rashi seems to complain about losing Moshe and also wanting to have different gods, different idols. Ramban says Ein Lashon Bechuvan. It's not really clear what Rashi is trying to say. It's not Lashon Meduyak, because on the one hand it talks about Elokim, or Elohim, which is Avodah Zarah, and they went out to make an Avodah Zarah, and on the other hand it talks about Moshe not being there. This pasuk that the people say, make for us Asilano Elokim, that you should make for us Kum Asilano Elohim Asher Chulafanena, which will go before us, is the key of keys, the mafteah, to open what's going on with the golden calf and what they were thinking about. Ki biyadua shlo hayu Yisrael surim shemoshe hu Elohim, that the people didn't think that Moshe was the God. They never thought that. V'shehu b'kocho asal lehem maltot v'amoltim. They didn't think that Moshe did all the wonders and miracles in Egypt. They knew Hashem did it. Moshe was the intermediary. Umatam shiyomu kevin shalach Moshe mimenu nas Elokim. And now, so why were they concerned that when Moshe left, that we should make something into some kind of God in place of Moshe? They said clearly, Elohim Asher Yachul Lefanenu, we want a God who went before us. We don't want just a God that went before us. We don't want a God that will give us life in this world or Olam Haba, the world to come. We want a God that will lead us. So what do they really want? They want some kind of spiritual inspiration where to go. Aval hayim mavakshim Moshe acher. What they really wanted, and here's the key keys to the Ramban, they really wanted a different Moshe, a replacement for Moshe. What did Moshe do for them? Amru, they said, Moshe she'ara lanu aderech mitzrayim adheina. Moshe who showed us the path from Egypt until here, until now, shayu amasim api Hashem biyad Moshe, because all the travels were by Hashem through Moshe. They didn't know where to go. Moshe knew based upon divine inspiration where to go. Hinei avad mimenu. He's lost. Nasal, therefore, Nasal on a Moshe Acher. We'll make another Moshe. Shiora derech lefaninu al pi Hashem biyado. We'll make another Moshe, or replacement for Moshe, who will show us the way. Yoreh haderech, be a morer derech, be a guide to follow through Hashem. Will appear and give divine inspiration to this replacement, alternative guide, who will guide us in the wilderness. And that's why it says, V'zeh tam eskiram Moshe ha'ish asher halanu lo yadanu mehalayolo. We don't know what happened to this Moshe. Who took us up? Who was the Morer Derech? Lo ha'kel asher halanu. Not the God that took us up. Ki yitztachu li shalakim. We need a man of God, a shaliach, a messenger, an intermediary between God and between us, who can receive the communication which way to go. We just need the guy who can tell us who will be, and how will we know where to go? God will tell him, or the individual, or the calf. And you will understand this when Moshe comes down and speaks to Aaron and says, "What'd you do?" You'll understand how Aaron's response. When Moshe says, "What did your people do to you?" They brought a great sin upon you. And what was Aaron's response? The people said, "Make for us a god." And I said, "Whoever has gold, bring it, rip it off, and bring it to me, and put it into the fire." So Aaron is trying to exonerate himself. Says the Ramban, Aaron is exonerating himself, finding an excuse himself. And what does he say? He says, "Don't be angry." It looks like he's making it worse. He's digging the hole for himself. He says, "Don't be angry. I made for them a god." It looks like he's saying they asked for a god, an idol, and I made for them the idol, and therefore, why should Moshe be angry? What sin could be worse than this? So therefore, what's the answer? Says the Ramban, he was not building an idol because they didn't want an idol. What did they really want? Only a guide. We haven't explained to you how a guide can be the ox, correct? That's the question. They didn't want a God that can give life and death, which they had accepted God upon themselves. They wanted a guide who can be Moreh, who can teach them the way. This is what Aaron said. They only wanted I should make for them some kind of divine being or divinity or divine power that'll go before them in your place, my dear sir, Mr. Moshe. Shlo yadu meha yalcha. They don't know what happened to you. Im tashuv, if you're going to return, im tashuv im lo. V'lachein heim hayitzrichim lemishior lehem darkam kozman shlo tiatar imahem. They needed something to give them direction where to go as long as you didn't come back. V'mulai tashuv, and if you were to come back, possibly yazvu v'yachu achrachu v'shna. And Aaron says to Moshe, if you were to come back, they'll leave it. They'll come back to you. V'chein hayadavar. That's exactly what happened. As soon as they saw the Moshe, they left the Egel, they kicked it, says the Ramban, conjecturing. They let Moshe take it to burn it. To take the ashes and sprinkle it on the water, which means completely destroyed. They didn't argue with it at all. Some commentaries talk about putting the ashes of this gold, of this calf, in the water, like the sota. Say the sota was unfaithful to God and had to her husband had to drink the water, so too the Jewish people were unfaithful to God. That's not what the Ramban is saying. The Ramban is saying, why did they let Moshe sprinkle the ashes into the water? To completely destroy it. Why did they have to drink it? Not clear. But it's more not really a test, it's more of a concept to completely eliminate. The people said, we don't need this. Get rid of it. V'chein tiren, says Ramban continues, and even look more, Moshe doesn't really reprove the people. He doesn't say to the people, what did you do? He says to Aaron, what did you do? And then Aaron says, well, it's not that bad, Moshe. I only made for them a guide. And Moshe says that he doesn't get angry with the people. He doesn't say anything. When Moshe came to the camp and he saw the calf and all the dancing, they ran away from it. They ran away when they saw Moshe. He takes the gaff and he burns it. He makes them drink it. They don't turn away. It's not clear why they want to drink it, why they want to have them drink it, according to Ramban. But once again, it's like we're completely destroying it. And if there was for them a god, or lelohim, an idol, who's going to leave behind their god or their king or their divinity and let it suddenly be burned. They're going to burn, it's really paraphrasing from Mitzrayim. They will burn their despicable, means their idol in front of them. They're not going to stone him. They're going to let their idol be destroyed. So therefore, it's not as bad as it looks. It's really about trying to find a replacement for Moshe. So far, so good. We haven't gotten to the hot part yet. Yes? Not yes.
So, where is the dancing coming from?
Why
We're just looking for a leader.
Good question. Why are they dancing?
Yeah.
So they're dancing now. They have a new leader. The Ramban would have to say, right. So Vayitzchak is really about sexuality. Okay, so they're sexually promiscuous. Okay, so the Jewish people sin with the daughters of Moab too. The Jewish people have come out of Egypt, which was terribly crooked or wrong in terms of sexual values. Okay, but you're right. In other words, it looks like this is an orgy, a rite to a new god.
Right. I mean, he's describing a scenario which is a little bit more
toned
benign than we normally view it. And one of the things that we view them as being bad people is because they were dancing and reveling and all of that stuff. Whereas Rambam is just saying they needed a new leader.
Okay, but who are they dancing to? So we don't know that. So you're assuming they're dancing to the Egel. However, let's go back to what does Aaron say to their people? Tomorrow, Chag LaShem Achar. Tomorrow is a feast for God. They don't know how to make feasts. They don't know how to make some kind of celebration. So they're celebrating to Hashem that they now have a new intermediary to Hashem. The king is dead, long live the king. The fact that it's not the proper way to celebrate a Yontif is only because you know it's not the proper way to celebrate a Yontif, because you've learned the rest of the Torah, right, about the Shalosh Regalim and Karbanos and everything else.
Okay, but I mean, he also says he saw the calf and the dancing. Like he's relating, he's connecting the two. So.
Well, he's telling you what he saw.
Okay.
He doesn't castigate. Once again, he doesn't castigate the people. If anything, if it were worshipping of some other deity, you'd expect him that he would kind of really lay into the people. I said the part that's not clear is about drinking this water. So a lot of Mefarshim say that if you accept that they're worshipping a god, a idol, then that's exactly what Moshe says. He does actually castigate them by saying, now you're going to drink from the water because you were unfaithful to Hashem. Ramban says, he's not really saying anything to them. He's just destroying the calf. And they let him destroy the calf.
It's the only way to thoroughly destroy the gold, the calf. Is to have them drink it.
Because it ends up in their feces.
Right. I mean, it's not there. There is no other way to make it disappear.
Well, because it's going to be in such a state that you would not want to be digging for it.
Right.
Right. That's right. So that's what you'd have to say.
You look at it that way, or like a lot of tribes drink the blood of
the cannibal.
Invigorate themselves. Yeah. So equally, that this is drinking of the blood, so to speak, of the.
Apparently, there are like two negatives here regarding Moshe. One is that he says he haraf, so he got angry.
Yeah.
And second, that he doesn't give them any benefit of the doubt.
When does he get angry?
Like it doesn't cross his mind that maybe this is just to replace him. He views this something more. So
Aaron says
I'm thinking that maybe not. Maybe what he is angry at and why he doesn't give them the benefit of the doubt is because there is nothing to give them benefit of the doubt, because he is angry with their debauchery, the promiscuity that he sees there, he sees.
Maybe. Well, see, what the Ramban does not address, and I'll just point it out, is when Moshe is up on Har Sinai, so what does Hashem say to him? And what's the bad stuff? He says very clearly. He says, they made for themselves, they went, they turned away from the path I gave them. Now, they made a golden calf, and they worshipped it, and they bowed down to it. Lo. So Moshe, we're saying that Moshe thought the worst. Moshe didn't think it on his own. He was prepped. Now, it looks like from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that it looks pretty bad. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't get it wrong. I don't know if the Ramban really addresses that discussion.
Now, when Aaron says Elohim, that could be interpreted as leaders. But when Hashem
Right.
says Elohecha, there is no other interpretation.
Correct. That's correct. Right. When Hashem says Vayishtachavu lo, Vayizbechu lo, Vayomru Eila Lech Yisrael, right?
There is no two ways.
Correct. So that makes it a little more difficult. I don't know if the Ramban ever addresses that. That's probably one of the weaker points of the Ramban's approach.
Right,
Okay.
right.
But when Aaron says that, Aaron is simply saying now the term Elokim or Elohim sometimes refers to leaders. We use it for God. It's a general term of God, but in fact, when the Sanhedrin is referred to, they come to the base, and we had in Parshas Mishpatim Ad Elohim Yavod Dvar Shnehem, before the Elokim. Now the Elokim is not before God. It could be Sanhedrin was in the base of Mikdash and near the Mishkan, so it's near God. But Chazal understand it because the leaders work with the connection to Hashem, that they tell the truth about din, about judgment, because Hashem, they're the extension of Hashem in this world. The leader can't go to Hashem and say, tell me, is Reuven right or Shimon right? You go to the Beit Din. The Beit Din are the ones who adjudicate. They're standing to give you God's law. So they're the Elohim.
I think that there is something held against the Bnei Israel then, that they did take it as God, because in our history, in our theology, we say that the calf, it's always held against them.
Right. So at the end of the Ramban, it gets a little bit hazy. It looks like maybe some people thought it was some people understood it was a leader. Some people may have thought it's already a god. The lines somewhat get a little blurred at the end of the Ramban. But right now, it's very clear he's talking about a leader. Okay. So why did Aaron bring out the shape? Why did Aaron choose the shape? It was Aaron's choice. They simply said, we want a leader. So why choose a calf? Why did he choose? You could have chosen an ox, or a lamb, or a goat, or anything else. And this is what the Chachamim say, when it says, when the Chazal say that the Jewish people wanted different Elokut, doesn't mean they wanted different gods. They didn't know which kind of shape to choose for their new type of leader. Because leadership can be anything. So why does Aaron choose the calf or the bull? Let me read it, then I'm going to explain to you what this means. That they were in the desert, which is really a place of desolation and destruction. And destruction and desolation comes from the north. As it says in the beginning of Yirmiyahu, give me a moment to read this and I'll explain it. It says, from the north will come down the evil, the desolation upon all the people. It doesn't only mean that the Yirmiyahu is talking about the king of Bavel, Nebuchadnezzar, coming from the north, like it seems to be in the symbol Pshat. It means that in the normal scheme of events, the Midat Adin, the strictness of justice, is going to come from the left side. This I need a moment to explain this to you. The symbol Pshat in Yirmiyahu, who prophesies in the first chapter, is about Nebuchadnezzar's coming. If you look on the map, Bavel, Babylonia, is northeast. And the way the trade routes come is they go through Syria and come on down. They couldn't go through Saudi Arabia, it was too desolate. So from Bavel, as opposed to running a straight line, they come like an arc, but they're coming down from the north. So when Yirmiyahu says and prophesies that the north is going to come down, mitzafon tipatach hara, from the north will be destruction, that's the pshat of what he means. That's what Nevuah is. The Baalei Kabbalah interpret this much differently. They say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has two sides, Midas HaChesed and Midas HaDin, Midas HaRachim and Midas HaDin. Now, in the viewpoint of the world, and I don't know if there are any southpaws I'm talking to, any lefties here, but the right is always considered better, and the left was always considered worse. In fact, they point out in the footnote that sinister, the term sinister is Latin for left, okay? So right was good and left was always bad. This was a very firmly entrenched belief, even so much so that when we were kids, they would sometimes want to take lefties and turn them how to become righties, because to be right, the right side was good, and lefties are turning everything around, an iter yad. But a lefty is a lefty, and that's not important. But the right is good, the left is bad. So therefore, you have to explain where the left fits into this. In the maps that you are used to seeing, You see a map, right? A map that's a wall map, or on the internet, like a wall map. Which is the side that's really going up on the top of the map? Which direction is on the top of the map? North. That's only by convention. In the Ramban's age, in the days of Chazal, they believed that the east was on the top of the map, because east was the way from pointing to Eretz Yisrael. So think of your maps being twisted this way, that the east is on the top. Okay. You daven to the east, you face to the east. Of course, if you were davening above Israel, you'd be facing south. If you're davening in Africa, you'd face north, but that's not important. What's important is that facing east was always considered to be on the top. This is a world which was less concerned about being a globe of a world. They may have believed the world was flat. It's not important, but in the maps that you look in the ancient world, you see that east is actually on the top, which means if east is on the top, which is on the right side of the east? No. South. Which is going to be on the left side? North. So left is bad. The north is going to be on the left side. So when it says mitzafon tipatach hara'ah, what it really means is from the left side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's powers. Okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kaviyachol, once again, is you think of the Kabbalah chart with all the X's across it. On the left side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the power of din, that's going to be the power of strict justice, which is destructive, which is not necessarily good, but anything you do wrong, HaKadosh Baruch Hu smites you with a lightning bolt, as opposed to the right side, which is the right side of Chesed. Okay, what does this have to do with anything? So far, it's hard to explain.
I always know that left is bad.
You always know the left is bad?
The left is bad. Sanders and Cortez.
Sanders was...
all the socialists.
We're all lefties, correct. Well, I believe lefties are bad too, but then again... So, but what it really means, in other words, when Yirmiyahu is saying from the north is going to come down the destruction, it means any destruction is going to come down from the left side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, that's one piece that you have to understand. The second piece is, and one more piece, and when you want to create, therefore, a leader who will be able to lead them in a place of destruction, right? When the getting gets tough, the tough get going. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. To live in a desert and to find a way through a desert and be successful in the desert, you got to be a tough kind of guy. You can't be a softie. A softie will kind of just crumple up and just not make it through it. So to live in a land of destruction and chareva, you need some kind of leader that's really going to rough and tough. You need some kind of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's going to be din to make it through this tough land. Okay, now that's one piece. So you got to find a leader who's going to be like a leader of din. So in the beginning of Yecheskel, the first chapter of the Yecheskel, which is the picture of the Chashmal, of the Merkava of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is a picture of a four-headed animal. There's this angel. There's this whirlwind that's coming from Tzafon, once again coming from the north. Anan gadol ve'ishmis lakachas v'nogelo saviv mitocha ke'esh hachashmal mitocha is coming from the north, and it's terrifying. And once again, you see which is left, is going to be terrifying. Mitocha, I'm just reading here from Yecheskel. You don't have it yet in front of you. Mitocha demut arba chayot. There is this picture of some four kinds of animals. V'zemarehen demut adam laheno, and it looks like a face of a man, but varba panim lachad. It has four faces. Varba knafayim lachat mehem, and it has four different kinds of wings. Ragleim regel yishor, and this kind of unusual kind of thing has got one single leg. V'kaf raglehem kekaf regel egel, and the feet look like their split hoofs like a calf. V'notisim kein achoshet kalal. V'yodei adam mitachat kanfem, and they're the hands of a man under the wings. Alabat revehem ufnem kanfem labatam. There are four different faces and four different wings in four different directions. And what do we know about the faces? Udmut pneihem pnei adam. The faces, there's the face of a man. Upnei Aryeh El Yamin, and the face of a lion is on the right, Labatam. Upnei Shor Me'asmol, and the face of the ox is on the left side, Labatan. Upnei Nesher Labatam, and then you have the face of the Nesher, looks like it's in the back of it itself. So you have four faces, man, Aryeh, Shor, and Nesher. This is this magnificent kind of thing that no one really knows how to make sense of it. Somehow it's related to the Merkava of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as a result, where is the face of the ox? I'll read again. Pnei Aryeh, Pnei Yamin.
On the left.
Pnei Shimon is on the left. So once again, what this Ramban is putting together, Al-Pi Kabbalah, left and north and left, and the ox, which is on the left side of this picture of the Merkava angel, is all about finding some kind of leader or inanimate leader or some kind of spiritual leader that would be able to be harsh and strong as the Midas HaDin is of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where do we find Midas HaDin? On the left side. Which of the animals is found on the left side of the Merkava? The Pnei Ashar, which is the ox, which is the egel. The egel is basically a young shor, a young ox. So why does Aaron choose this? Because Aaron knows the Psukim in Yecheskel, or he understands the Kabbalah to know where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's powers are. So he wants to choose something that is going to be symbolic of something that's rough and tough to kind of replace Moshe. And therefore he can't choose another person, he can't build a person, he chooses some kind of shape that would be reflective of the powers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which are strong to get them through the desert, which is a rough and tough place of destruction. You need something that's a destroying value of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how this all comes together.
But you need a mature ox, not a young ox.
Why?
A young ox.
Why?
Because they need a leader then, and they don't need to wait to.
A young ox will grow up. It's still an ox. An ox is an ox. No, that's where it comes from. So the egel and the shor is going to be the same thing. So I'll read it again. So therefore, I'm going to read this paragraph again, and we'll go ahead. Because the Jewish people lived in the wilderness, which was destroyed, desolate. And destruction comes from the north, as it says in Yirmiyahu, that from the north will come down the destruction to all the people. It doesn't only mean the prophecy of the Jewish people, it means all kinds of destruction. It's only about not just the king of Nebuchadnezzar from Bavel, who happens to be geographically in the north, Kasher Yereb Nigla and Akatuv as the Nigla. That's a simple pshat. There's Nigla. Nistar is, of course, referring to the hidden parts of the Kabbalah. From the left side is going to come the Midat Hadin to punish all the Jews, or punish all the people on the earth when they do bad. So therefore, Mizrach is up. Left side is going to be north. V'hinei b'marei haMerkava, in the vision of the Merkava, which represents God's ultimate throne and chariot, which we don't understand, but really becomes the basis for a lot of Kabbalah. Pnei shor me'asmol abatam. The face of the shore is on the left side of the four animals. V'lachein chashav Aaron ki ha'machariv yored derech makom ha'churban. That in order to get to a place of churban, you need a machariv, you need a destroyer. To get through a tough place, to get through a really tough thing, you need a tough car, you need a tough kind of set of wheels, you need a tough leader. Kisham kocha gadol, because that's where the person's leadership actually comes from. And when they would worship this symbol, or worship this image that they would make, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would build a connection to it. Yareh alav ruach mimarom. Some kind of spirit would come down from on high. Kasher netzal Moshe. In the same way Moshe received the spirit of Hashem. Moshe on his own was nothing. The only power that Moshe has is HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him from his spirit. V'zeh shomar, and that's why Aaron says, Chag l'Hashem achar. Tomorrow we're going to celebrate Hashem, and we're going to put the calf out, and while we're celebrating and inaugurating this calf, we hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send down some powers to give the calf the divine inspiration. Shiur vodot v'azvachim l'shem hamyuchad. It'll be to Hashem shem hamyuchad, all the sacrifices. Lafik v'tzal mimeno bal hatzurah, to bring down the Ratzon of Hashem to this tzura, this shape, this calf. That's what they'll have the kavanah for. And says the Ramban, I'll bring you somewhat of a hint that you find from the Medrash. Now, Ramban here quotes a number of Medrashim which he actually stitches together. So he says it's in the Medrash, but it's really about 4 or 5 Medrashim together. But Rabboteinu limdu oto inyan hazeh v'hem shigilu sadon. The rabbis pointed this out in the Medrash, and they were the ones who revealed this secret that I just told you. Amru, it says, Hashem says to Moshe, in Egypt, this is at the burning bush, I saw the difficulty of my nation. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, I saw the difficulty of my nation? Well, obviously the difficulty of the Jewish people in Israel. It means, no, I see the difficulty we're going to have in the future. Amallah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe in this fantastic medrash, Moshe, Atoro eri achad, you see one vision, Ani uesh deviyot, you see one vision, I see two. Atoro el tamboyim lasinam kabbalim torti, you see the vision that they leave Egypt and they come to Sinai and get my Torah. I see beyond that, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I see everything all together, all of history, all in one shot. I see that how they begin to contemplate. Ki ani yotzei b'kronim shali, that I go out in my carriage. This is the Merkavah, the divine chariot. She'atein lamad the Torah. I'm going to go out in my divine chariot. The secrets of HaKadosh Baruch Hu give them the Torah. Shenemar, as it says in Tilim, Rechev Elokim Rebotayim Alfei Shinon. This is the chariot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is 10,000. I'm not sure. I think it refers to the angels. Shinam V'Shomtim. And what are they going to do when they see my chariot come? This is all very anthropomorphical, anthropological. V'Shomtim echad mihatat ramilin. They're going to unhitch one of the animals leading my chariots. So Tatra Mila, he's going to explain in a moment what it is. Shakatuv upnei shor me'asmol, and they're going to unhitch the shore which is pulling my divine chariot. Machisimo, and they're going to make me angry. So this is what the Medrash says. So what does it mean? So Tatra Milin, says the Ramban, is Arba Predot, is a set of 4 mules. Tetra means 4. Tatra is Balashon Yavan Arba, which you know. Tetra means 4. So there's 4 animals hitched together. There are 4 animals which pull, which are normally mules. Kmosh Yamru, Tatrogin Arba, and Mulin are Predos. Mulin are mules. So Tatra Mulin is 4 different mules. Kmo Mulot Shel Beit Rabbi. This is a story about the mules of Beit Rabbi, who didn't know what to do with them because they were destructive. So what is it really mentioning? Mashal Abachayot Hanosot Merkavah. This is really a symbol of the 4 different animals, 4 different chayot, the holy animals, the angels that are pulling the Merkavah. And therefore, I'm looking ahead. The Jewish people, says to God says to Moshe at the burning bush, I'm looking ahead to Jewish history. You think we're going to get out of here and just get to Sinai and everything is good? After that, the people are going to kind of take one of my angels, which is the Pnei Ashur, and they're going to unhitch it from me and begin to make it separate. And once again, the Midrash Vayikra Rabbah says also, Aaron says, because I'm going to make it for Hashem, I'm going to make it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shenemar, Vayikra Aaron Vayom Chag l'Shem Machar. Chag la'egel Machar ein katav kan el Hashem. So once again, the Medrash and Vayikra Rabbah also makes it clear they're not worshiping the egel; they're worshiping who Hashem. So this is really what the Ramban says. And he says, however, the Ibn Ezra seems to say differently. For Rabbi Avram Amar, you know what he says about the Ibn Ezra. In this kind of situation, when the people are asking for an Elohim, they're asking for a honor that will rest upon the shape of this animal. And if you go back to the first travel, when they left Egypt, it talks about Malach Elokim went from the back to the beginning. So the Ramban the Ibn Ezra is saying somehow they're going to be worshiping this egel like a god, in the same way that the angel led them for it. The Ramban says not true. Not that they want to make with special kind of, mazalot and astrology and sorcery to make a god that is made of a shape. They only made the shape to focus on being a leader. The leader would be somehow invoked within the egel that would be given power from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be the leader for them, not to be a actual God or deity that would really represent what they were. And I've already explained to you what it is. According to the Ibn Ezra, that he felt that HaKadosh Baruch Hu led them out of Egypt. So the Ramban says not true, there was an angel that led for them. The Chalila Shratzar only the love. Not really clear, a couple of words here. And Chalila, Chas v'Chalila, that Aaron wanted to make actually a god. Aaron only wanted this shape of the ox to bring down and invoke the powers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Midat Hadin, which would build them some kind of leader. No, once again, not clear how the ox could be a leader. What does that mean? But they would get the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through this ox, which would show them the power of Midas Hadin. So they wanted to have a leader who would give them Midas Hadin. Now, is that so far so good? We're going to do a couple more pieces to this. Okay, we'll just wrap this up. You're laughing.
Well, I'm not sure I'd say so far so good.
Well, okay, it's not so far so good. So So this is the basic piece of the Ramban. Okay, we're going to do the Ramban Beis and Dalet too, because it kind of all go together. Okay, and then we can reflect whether it makes a lot of sense for us. So then, what's the next thing? Aaron says to the people, "Parkunas me'azav, take off the gold that you have." So why does Aaron want the gold? Why gold? Why not silver? Why not copper? Well, copper is not so rich. Why not silver?
Maybe you'll refuse.
I'm sorry. So is silver. Silver is also moldable. We kind of make silver with its 14 karat or 24 karat because we have to put in certain other alloys to make it hard. Well, maybe it's not two. Maybe that's not true. It's 0.925 is silver. 14 karat and 24 karat is gold. Gold is softer, but you can still melt down silver. What did you say, Dan?
Maybe they will refuse.
They would refuse, maybe to kind of deflect them, maybe, possibly. Okay. So the Ramban says not true. Bachar zahav lo kesav. He had them choose gold and not silver. Bavur shehu morel midat hadin. Because according to the Ramban, gold reminds a person of midat hadin. Why? Why would gold remind us more of din than anything else? Says Ramban, Umarehu kamare esh, that the color of gold is like fire. Fire is destructive, and so therefore the fire will remind us of midat hadin. And Aaron is trying to make some kind of leader that's going to be about midat hadin, about the strict justice. Kmo shamu, as it says, zahav parvim, which is, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Kmo shamu midat mareh kmareish. Kmo shamu, oh, zahav parvim shudomeh ledam parim. This was gold. This was like yellow gold that he would put onto the Yom Kippur, which was made of this gold that was parvim, which looked like the dam parim. So notice somehow it was a golden, brownish gold color. And therefore the house of the Karbanot, or the Mishkan, which was really made of a lot of gold, and also the altar of the Ketoret, the Kruvim were also made of gold, because they all remind us of the Midas Hadin. And if you couldn't even put in gold and silver together with them, and the other reason he talks about using gold is because he tends to just the physical color of the calf was more closer to the bronze of gold than it was to silver. So he gives two reasons. Why did he choose gold? The second reason is it looks like it's the color of a calf. The first reason, though, it's about fire, and fire is midas hadin. And what does he say? Okay, and there's one more Ramban, Dalet. Vayamru, and Aaron says to the people, Vayamru, or they say, this is your God Israel that took you out of Egypt. This pasuk also says that they're worshipping the calf not as a god but as a leader. Only a fool, right? Not even a fool would think that the gold, which a few moments ago was in their wives' ears, took them out of Egypt. But what are they really saying? They're simply saying that this shape, or this kind of representation of the Midat Hadin, which the Shor reminds us of Midat Hadin, as your Ramban explained, is the one that took us out from there. And here's where it gets a little confusing in the Ramban, because the Shor did not take them out, the Kadosh Baruch Hu took them out. But I think what he's trying to say is the Midat Hadin, which was destructive to the Egyptians, was what actually brought them out of Egypt. When we look at God as being kind to the Jewish people, but He actually destroyed the Egyptians. So the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim is which kind of power? The power of Midat Hadin. So they need a leader who's going to represent Midat Hadin. Okay, and just one more paragraph. We don't really find anywhere that it says that the golden calf or the calf took him out of Egypt. They still accept what Hashem says. Now, it's not what the Ramban is saying. They're not really saying that the Egel took them out of Egypt, except it's not that true. It's not true. Because what do they say? Are they talking about the calf? Or are they talking about Hashem? So Ramban says they still believe Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim. Not an angel, but only God took them out. But here's where the Ramban gets confusing. In some places it says Asher Helucha, that took you out. Ki chuzeh b'makom hayad gulam achrevet hayom hashama me'amakei yom derech lavar gulam. It's taking the place of God's mighty hand, so it's a representation of God. V'zeu shenemar v'amirat kvodam b'tavnit shor ochel esev. This is what Yeshaya says. They flipped their God, their respect for God, for the shape of a shor. V'sham nemar, and it says there shachachu el moshiyam oseh gedol b'mitzrayim. They forgot God. They forgot Hashem, and therefore it looks like what the Ramban seems to be backtracking a little bit. So they went against, maybe a little bit, some of them went against what I think the Ramban is trying to say, I'm not sure here, but I think the best I can make of this piece of Ramban, and I think what's what the article tries to say, is as they went along, some people began believing in Moshe, believing this was a leader, but they also got confused. In the same way that idol worship was really meant to represent Hashem, but they eventually gave the idol the purpose, so choosing this calf as a representation of Moshe, eventually some of the people began worshipping it as Lo Yeh L'Cholim Achrim, but not that they ever rejected Hashem. The bottom line is, even if some of the people worshipped this and thought this was a god of some sort, they never rejected God completely. It almost became like a secondary, a tertiary kind of God.
A conduit?
Like,
a conduit to God?
What the Ramban said until now is the way he understands the sin of the golden calf is they were looking for some kind of leader who would be a conduit to know how to negotiate through the wilderness. And they chose it. Why did they choose the shore? Because this is one of the faces of the angels in the Merkavah, Yechezkel 1, and that's the face that's really on the side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that represents Midas Hadin. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So that's the Ramban. Questions? It's very difficult stuff, but some of it is not so simple. But the advantage of it is they're not rejecting Hashem, and they never really reject Hashem. You think about the story of the wilderness; they reject Moshe, they reject going to Israel, but they don't. They question Hashem, but they don't really leave Hashem for a different God. The story in the wilderness, they do have one God. It's only when they get to Canaan that they find that they begin slipping into syncretism with some of the other local deities. But in the Midbar, they're only serving one Hashem. So how could they leave Hashem? It says Ramban, they never left Hashem.
So Aaron then, in a way, the egel, the shape that he chose, was based on
the picture of the
Merkava,
right?
And it wasn't what other nations worshipped. It was clearly comes from our understanding.
Right, correct. Everybody has to deal with why choose a calf.
Yeah.
Right. So some point out that there were calves that were used, and they were used as deities. Fair enough. But it says Ramban, it's not a deity. Right. Why choose a calf? Not simply it was a random kind of thing, not because they were used to it, not because it was a big animal, but they chose it because of Merkavah.
The question I had way back at the beginning was, why didn't they approach Aaron? If they were looking for a new leader, why could Aaron not have substituted for Moshe?
He wasn't. Because he wasn't. Aaron was not a political leader. Aaron remains a religious leader. In fact, at this point, Aaron isn't even chosen. There is no Mishkan yet.
Therefore, he wasn't established as a religious leader.
So I guess they didn't feel he was the leader.
But they were approaching him to do things in Moshe's absence, but not to be the leader. That's
He's holding the fort. He's the substitute teacher. Substitute teacher is never going to be the principal.
But if they're ready to choose to go with a
calf,
he
was ready to go with a calf. Yeah, she chooses the calf. The people don't know what to choose.
Here's my question.
Yes.
The question is the Hebrews believed in Hashem, yes?
Yes.
But they're taking these other things, calf, whatever it is, and they're using that to get connected, correct?
I'm not sure where this is going.
No, I'm saying
say
that
correct,
they
I need to know where the question is going.
No, okay, hold on.
I need to know.
They have the golden calf.
So the reason the Ramban says the reason they chose the calf has to deal with the fact that the image in the Merkavah, which was on the left side of HaKadosh Baruch, right side of God is Chesed, the left side of HaKadosh Baruch is Din, strict justice. So Aaron wanted to choose some kind of visual image that would then be invoked by Kadosh Baruch Hu to give it some kind of navigating power to lead them in the wilderness. And Aaron chose an image that is a strong image, that is a destructive image on the left side of the Merkavah, which is the left side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Midas Adin, because to get through a rough and tough desert, you need a rough and tough kind of symbol of who's in the gap.
Okay, so then what's the problem in the first place if that's the case? What's
pro-
the issue then?
So
that
what-
seems kosher to me.
And in fact, when Moshe comes down, there is no issue. The people abandon the calf, according to the Ramban.
So what's the whole 3,500-year-old story of the golden calf then, if that's the case?
So the golden calf it looks like from the end of the Ramban that some people actually got misguided and began believing the golden calf is some kind of deity as well.
But we still make a big deal out of
But,
it. It's a greater sin.
and to choose an animate object that's going to be invoked with the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that itself is wrong. Let's say it more directly. To take a molten image and say this molten image, this statue, is not simply a statue. It's now we're going to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring God's power to invoke the statue and give it the ability to divine. That's where the wrong happens.
That wasn't my question. My question is this. This golden calf, was the connection based on the Hebrews' association with Egyptian culture?
So according to the Ramban, no. According to the Ramban, no. According to a number of other commentaries, yes. According to a number of other commentaries, who suggest that they're actually worshipping a real God, such as Ibn Ezra, such as Rashi, seem to say they're choosing some deity. Why choose this deity? This is what they were used to seeing.
Okay, that's my question. But there's no
Right.
consensus.
There is no consensus, correct. There were different approaches to what the sin of the
So
golden
how do
calf
we
was.
really know?
So the answer is we don't know. We have to try to offer interpretations to make it work. So if you assume that it's really a deity of God, we'll take a break in half a second. If you assume it's really a god or an idol, so then that's a simple approach. Then you have to explain how is it that people suddenly start worshiping an idol after they got the Torah at Sinai. Right? If you say it was not a deity, it was simply a representation of Moshe, as the Ramban says, we can understand why the people slipped. They lost Moshe completely. So, but then you have to explain why they choose a calf. So every approach, you've got to kind of deal with the situation at hand that we don't know. So however you interpret it, it's surely not a perfect kind of thing. The question is it bad or bad? Is it worse or worse than worse? And as the Ramban says at the end, at the very least, they were transgressing the second commandment not to have any other false gods with them, because they really wanted this calf to have some kind of divine power. To make another god doesn't mean only a god, it means to create some kind of divine leadership power. To say, by the way, that they're choosing symbols that are associated with divinity that they're used to, so the best support for that, this will break, and then we can come back and maybe we'll do halacha. But if you remember the story with Yeravam, when Yeravam ben Nevat breaks away from the kingdom of the son of Shlomo, what does he do? He sets up golden calves in Dan and in some other place, I forget where. The Jewish people should not go to Jerusalem. They should worship the golden calves he sets up. So people are used to somehow seeing calves are some kind of symbol of worship. Okay? Take a break. Okay.
How was yesterday?
It was actually different and good. We learned as a group.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Ask these guys. They're all
How was yesterday? Okay. I went to
It was
the bite
different.
to give blood.
Did you? Thank you.
Yeah.
It was full. I got there later. Yes.
It was really crowded.
Okay. See you tomorrow? Okay. Did you have to wait long?
Yeah, it was about an hour.
Yeah. It was. A lot of people came.
Yeah.
I don't know why they can't get it quicker.
Masha, I have a question for anyone here. Particularly you, because you're more educated and knowledgeable than we are. When you're in the presence of another Jew who doesn't believe in Hashem, do you even have a discussion with them? Someone says, I don't believe it, the Holocaust, this and that, the bad, there's no way. Do you even bother to be taught?
Why wouldn't you want to talk about it?
I do, but it seems that I'm not really convincing.
You have two things. Should you talk to them or should you convince them?
I'm not trying to. Well, I'm giving them my viewpoint and
So
why
the
there's a
Holocaust
Shem.
is a very difficult topic to argue.
Well, I can't go into Avigdor Miller and tell them the reason why. They're not going to want to accept that.
You see, because there are different reasons why. Rav Teichel has a whole different reason why. He's going to say the Holocaust was because we didn't
shovel
Israel.
yesterday, did you?
Right.
It's very hard to explain the Holocaust.
But when
Even though
someone
there
just
was
says,
snow on
this
the
is
driveway.
fooey,
No,
you're nuts,
I
what are you
didn't
doing,
bother.
Jeff? This is holding an umbrella and shop. What does it matter if you eat lobster? How do you answer this? How do you... Yes, there are spiritual reasons. Do I even bother to go into it, or just leave it because they're just not on the level? It's like learning Chinese. I just don't understand.
So you start by whether you should talk with them, and the question is how much you should talk to them.
Well, that's the question. What's the right to say to someone who says, this is madness, what are you doing? Then I talk about creation, the universe, the likelihood that the earth is so far from the sun. That's the physical, that's the scientific.
So you will never be able to explain. I would say you will never. It's very difficult to explain every piece of minutia.
Yeah, it's hard. How did Uncleus convert all the Roman soldiers? I want to know how.
Because in those days, just seeing a person believe in one God was so unusual.
I thought I was convincing, but I have a very tough time with my whole family.
Yeah.
They don't want to know.
You're going to wait.
But do they respect you?
Yeah, they do respect me, but they don't want to know from it, Moshe. They don't want to know from the lifestyle. Sure. Why do I wear a kippah here and there?
We're leaving Tuesday. We're going to spend Shabbos in Boca Raton.
Okay.
What we don't know is whether we're going to come back and spend the next Shabbos in New York with our kids, or just going back here. It's a week and a half.
I think it's we offsides.
Young lad, they said that, what was that, in Abraham, right?
Page 504.
When Abraham was taking Isaac, they called him,
Yeah, he called him a lad. He said the two Nara, the two lads that were with him.
yeah.
So the term Nar comes up in a number of places, and one of them, which is in Parshas Kitis on the top of 504, this is Moshe is taking his tent outside the camp, and people see Moshe go by, and then we're told the Divrei Hashem, the very top of page 504, 505, they see that Moshe speaks to Hashem face to face, like people normally speak, comes back to the camp, and his servant, Yoshua ben Nun, Yoshua ben Nun, which the translation, Mr. Archibald says, is a lad, right? Lo Yemush mitoch ohel. He will not. He stays continually at the camp of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he is together with Moshe. But he's identified as a
Lad.
lad.
Anybody under 200 was a lad.
Well, all right. Well, we'll see how old he actually was. Okay.
Hi.
Right. So the comment is, what does a lad mean? So this becomes a comment that really applies not only to this parsha, it applies to every place where the term comes up. Okay. I don't have Hebrew English for that. You have a Hebrew English Ramban with you?
Sorry?
You have a Hebrew English Ramban?
No,
Oh, I got
not
one.
for Shmos.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
There we go. So let me just find a place in this one. This is going to be 33:11, and I got one copy here. Okay. Here. It's going to be here in the Ramban. Here's the Hebrew English Ramban. Okay. On this page, we're going to take a look at the Ramban 33:11. I just grabbed yours. I'll give it to you in 1 second, okay? 33:11, which is found in this book on page Tov Kof Yud Ches. There we go. Tov Kof Yud Ches.
This is interesting. They talk about exactly what you just said.
About the land. Yeah, that's exactly.
To the point, to the T.
Right, he's
Kidding me.
No.
What did you say?
I'm a zaken.
You're a Zaken, okay. So the Ramban says, Tav Kuf Yud Ches, Masata, you got it? Found it?
On Ramban elucidated. It says Joshua lived for 110 years.
Right.
For 7 years he conquered the land of Israel, for 7 years portioned amongst the tribes. If so, he was 56 years old.
Okay, excellent.
So how does Scripture call him a lad?
That's what I'm about to read. Good for you. So that's the question. So why is he called Yoshua ben Nun, who's a lad for Moshe? Katav Rabbi Avram. Rabbi Avram is the Ben Ezra. So he says Yoshua was 110 years old when the rabbi said Sheva Shanim Kavash. He lived for 110 years old. 7 years he conquered the land of Israel. 7 years he divided the land of Israel. At the end of the division is when he passes away. And we have between now and the end of the wandering in the wilderness, we have 40 years. So he was 110, and it's 14 years plus 50 years. What's 110 minus 40 minus 54 is how much? 56, correct. So in other words, we know based upon the genealogy, we know that Yoshua, if you read Sefer Yoshua dies at the end of the book of Yoshua. The book of Yoshua encompasses 14 years. 7 years they conquered the land, and 7 years they divided it up. So those are 14 years in Israel. Yoshua is, at least at this point, there were 40 years ahead of him. So we know, we don't know when he's born, but we can work backwards. 110 minus 14 minus 40 becomes 56. So therefore, at this point, says Ramban, or he's quoting Ibn Ezra, he's 56 years old. So how can the Bible call him a nar, call him a youngster, call him a lad? And the Chachapei will show, and this is really what the interpretation, it means what he is. Umisharto Yoshua ben Nun shevut nar. It means that what Yoshua was doing the work of a nar, of a youngster. In other words, he was doing what a nar would be doing. So the Ibn Ezra says, this is not what the Ramban is going to say. Ramban's not that different. He says Yoshua was doing for Moshe what you would normally hire a lad's work to do. Okay, like unskilled labor, like labor that a little kid could be doing, or a teenager could be doing, like running errands. That's why Yoshua is called a nar. Who says this? Rabbi Avram, the Ibn Ezra. And you know that 9 out of 10 times when the Ramban quotes the Ibn Ezra, he usually has another opinion. And here he actually deals very gently with him. He doesn't take him down like a tackle. He simply says it's a little bit different than the Ibn Ezra said. V'yadati, and according to the way I understand it, I'm reading the Ramban, okay? V'yadati, and according to my opinion, says the Ramban, Derech Lashon HaKodesh Yikarei Kol Mishrei Nar. The way of Hebrew, the way of Lashon Kodesh, is everyone who's doing a service activities in the service profession is called a Nar. Not just about doing unskilled labor like you'd hire a kid for, but this is anyone who is an assistant, an associate to someone else, and they're serving someone else.
Like a gabbai, right? Or a parnas, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, correct. But the gabbai or the parnas is probably working independently and making his own decisions. This is more the guy, I'll tell you what it's like.
A peon.
Well, not a peon, but the guy who decides who gets the aliyahs and sends around some guy to go get the guy. He says, find someone to go pick up the Torah, find someone to get shlishi. So the guy who runs to get it, who may be an older gentleman, is working in a subservient type of capacity.
That's me. Okay.
He's like the guys that went with Avram.
Yeah, same thing there, and then also called Na'arim, Na'arav. The people who are going with Avram are called Na'arav. They're called as lads, even though they may not be youngsters. It's not that they're doing poor, unskilled work, not work that a kid could do. They're just doing work that's not. They're not an independent contractor. They're simply a service person who is serving someone else.
Would the Kohens under the Kohen Gadol be considered nars?
No, because they all have their own jobs to do. They're not associated. In other words, well, let's do the examples he mentions. The person who is respected, who is the person in leadership capacity, he is the man. And the person who works with him or who helps him, who assists him, is called a nar. We have the same thing with Eliyahu, Gehazi Naro. He has a nar called Gehazi. Gehazi is not a youngster, but he just always is the shamus of Eliyahu. So because he is his assistant, He's the guy who prepares things for Eliyahu. He's called his nar. Or we have later in Malachim, it says, Yakumu lo noha narim v'sachikul lefanenu. It talks about two people they asked to kind of do some kind of play fighting. V'chein asara na'arim nosei kleyav. And it talks about, also in Sefer Shmuel, it talks about 10 na'arim who are carrying the garments, not the garments, but the armor of Yoav. They're carrying his weapons. So we talk about this like we always think of the nar is carrying he's carrying the armor, he's carrying the sword. But the reality is, Ki Yoav lo yimsar kelev rak lanashim giborei chayil shamdu al yado. Yoav, who's the general, is the only one who's going to assist them. The people, they themselves have to be strong people to carry this kind of weaponry, to have the skill to go into battle next to Yoav, who's the general. Not going to choose schleppers who are nobody. He's not going to choose kids to do this. It's not a job for a kid. Or Ksiv l'shnayim anashim aglim amar Yoshua, and to two people, Yoshua sent two meraglim, the two spies that Yoshua sends to go to spy out Yericho. So it says, Uksiv vayevo hanorim hamraglim. The spies, the two spies that Yoshua come back, and they're called Na'arim Raglim. They're not youngsters. The two spies that Yoshua sends to go to Yericho are older people, but they're working in a subservient kind of position. Why? They were serving the congregation. That there was Meraglim Haim. V'lechein Rabbim in many cases come like this. So v'chein, in another case where this comes up, and he doesn't mention Avram here, but it comes up in Megillat Esther. We studied it yesterday. We had Narei Melech Mishartav, the Narim. We didn't have it actually yet. We have Narei Melech Mishartav, the lads of the king who serve him. They're the ones who discuss about having the plan to get rid of Vashti and to replace Vashti with the queen. So they send out messengers, but they're in a capacity. They're the people who stand before the king to assist him. They're not the ones who are serving outside in the courtyard. They're serving the king. So it's identifying them as these individuals who service the king are called Narei Melech Misharsav. And therefore, V'mkein Yomar u'misharto Yoshua ben Nun, and therefore Moshe's lad or Moshe's assistant is Yoshua ben Nun misharei tamid shlo yimush mitoch ha'ol. He is there to watch over Moshe, and as a result, he doesn't leave the tent of Moshe. So Yeshua always works in the subservient capacity to Moshe Rabbeinu. This may be why when Moshe dies, who is chosen to take the place of Moshe? Yeshua. So the Torah says actually, Parshas Pinchas, that Moshe's wisdom is transferred to Yeshua. But the reality is, it's the fact that he has this personal experience of serving, right? He's the apprentice to Moshe, an apprentice with a good example. So therefore, he now takes over the control. So this is what does not about. It's not about age. It's really about the type of profession that you're in, which is a service profession, which you are doing, being an apprentice. Okay? Not difficult, Ramban. Then Ramban says something else. Now, what's Yeshua called? He's called Yeshua ben Nun. Now, he's not called Yeshua ben Nun. It's called Yeshua ben Nun. So why is he called ben Nun? V'tam ben Nun. No, then he'd be called ben Nun. He'd be called ben Nun. So v'tam ben Nun bo b'chirik t'mura segel. It has the chirik, the e, in place of the segel ben. And the same thing you have Divrei Agur bin Yaka. That's another name for Moshe and for Shlomo in Mishlei. Bin Laila Haya bin Laila Avad. You also find the same thing when the end of the book of Yonah, where this Kikayon appears, this kind of big weed appears, and it comes up one day and one night, and it's gone the next day. Or in Bin Hakota Rasha, or if the Rasha hits a person. So you see that sometimes it flips between Ben to Bin. So in other words, Ramban basically says this is a grammatical Ramban, but he's actually going to say something significant. Said that the bin and ben, or e and es, sometimes flip between each other. So sometimes you have bin nun, sometimes you could have been in place of that ben nun. It doesn't really mean anything. Okay.
So it's random, or there's a reason?
So he's going to give you a reason. Vim calls there, says, having told you, I think it's just simply a flip in the grammar. Vim calls there, nitzomea madur lo nimla b'shem atzadik hazeh acher echad she'yavo b'kamen hag. So since I still got to ask the question, how come this tzaddik, this Yoshua, why isn't he simply called Yoshua ben Nun? So you can tell me it's random, but randomly you have to have a reason why. So he says as follows, Vani choshev, Kinagula kroto ken lechavod, that they actually called him bin nun as a sign of kavod. What does that mean to say? Why do we know kavod? Ki hayah gadol b'talmidei Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the greatest of Moshe Rabbeinu's students. He was his assistant. He was chosen because he had some kind of wisdom, and therefore v'yikru lo bin nun. In other words, as if to say it's like a nickname. He was the son of Nun, but they also changed the name to call it bin nun because bin nun comes from binah. Okay, so it's like a double entendre. Okay, so in other words, and he used the term Klomar Hanavon, the wise ones. He's called Yoshua, the son of Nun. Yoshua, who is the wise one. Why? Ki ein avon v'chacham kamo. There was no one who had the wisdom of Yoshua. No one had the wisdom like Yoshua because he was next to Moshe. Or it means, or else Yoshua Shabina Molid. Yoshua, whose wisdom gave birth to, or gives birth to wisdom. So Yasu Nun Milashon Lefnei Hashem Esh Yinun. So Yinun means to continue or to continue to grow. So it either means like Bina, or Yinun Binun means from Yinun, which means that the sun will continue like the sun continues to rise. Lefnei Hashem Esh Yinun Shemo. The sun will continue to grow and grow. So as if to say, it could either mean Yoshua the wise one, or Yoshua may he continue to grow. So the Ramban says at the end of the day, this is his name was Ben Nun. He was the son of Nun. But having said that, like you say, Ben Zakain. Okay? And you sometimes joke Ben Zakain that you're a Zakain and not a Zakain.
That's right.
But when they called you Ben Zakain, you were a little kid.
Exactly.
But in other words, sometimes names can have a dual meaning. Right? And similar to maybe some of what the names that we have, the European names that we take, which all had some kind of meaning of Goldberg, right, and
Glazer.
Goldman, Glazer, right, and all those kind of names. So therefore, that's the Ramban about first of all about Bin Nun, and more importantly about the term of Nar, which comes up throughout the Torah. Okay, one more short Ramban, then we'll go to Nesivos Shalom. This is Ramban is at the beginning of the parsha. What's the first thing that comes up in the parsha? In Parshas Kisisa.
First word?
First topic, and someone said it before, the half shekel.
The half shekel, yeah.
Right, the half shekel. So he says, at the beginning of Parsha 4, just read out, just be a two psukim here for you. When you count, it says, when you take a census of the children of Israel, if good they have, everybody will give for Hashem an atonement for his soul. How are they going to count? A half shekel of the, how they translate? A half shekel of the sacred shekels, which is equal to 20 gerah, they'll give to Hashem. So everybody gave a half shekel. Correct? And as a rule, we don't want to count people, so they didn't count people directly. What did they do? They gave a half shekel, they counted up the shekels, multiplied by 2, and therefore if they counted, let's say they collected 300,000 shekels, they counted, multiplied 2, there was 600,000. So this was the way they counted. There's a lot of discussion, by the way, in some of the commentaries, why a half shekel, why not a full shekel? Was this was a lot of money, or was it really about the fact that even when you count a person, you're only a half person without HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's usually what we say. But the bottom line is we're giving a half shekel, and that's no chiddush itself. The chiddush is it's called machzis shekel b'shekel HaKodesh, the holy shekels. So the Ramban is going to explain what the term kodesh means. And the Ramban talks about what the value of the coin is, but then the Ramban says something else. In general, what do we call Hebrew? What does the Torah call Hebrew when we talk about it? We used it actually, we just read before. Lashon HaKodesh. So why is the Hebrew called Lashon HaKodesh? Today we call it Ivrit. But really it's called Lashon Kodesh. Why is it called holy tongue?
Because holy things are discussed. That's the language that Hashem used.
That's the language. So that's the language of Hashem. So it's Hashem's language. Okay, so therefore it's Hashem's language. And therefore it's the language, but then we'd say called Lashon Hashem.
But he had to speak a language, which was a Hebrew language, which the world was using.
Why was the world using it?
Well, that was a universal language back in the day.
Okay.
You mean only in the land, right?
No, the whole world was speaking Hebrew.
In other words, Chazal feel the original language was Hebrew, and all the languages are derivatives of that. It goes back to the story of Bavel, Bavel, and so forth.
Okay.
So it could be the original language. And why is it holy? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke it. So the Ramban is actually going to say there are two reasons why it's called holy. Rambam, Maimonides, writes in Mor Nevuchim, the reason it's called holy is because there's really no words for the parts of the body that are what we call unholy. Right? There's no really word for penis, there's no word for anus, there's no word for sexuality. All these terms that are used in Hebrew are used in euphemisms. The words in Hebrew in the Torah, not modern Hebrew, in the Torah, do not really want to talk about things that are dirty, so to speak, in direct format. Who says that? Rambam says it.
So how would a doctor...
I'm talking about the Torah, the words of the Torah. I'm not talking how Hebrew has developed and
I see. Okay, I'm sorry.
the words, the Hebrew that's used, biblical Hebrew, is therefore called Lashon Kodesh, because there's nothing there that's desanctifying, that is animalistic, that is, despicable or dirty. In a lot of ways we use the term, that's found in the Torah. The Ramban says that's actually not the reason, because if that were the case, the term would not be called Lashon Kodesh. What term would be a better way to describe things that a language that has nothing about that's dirty? Well, Tahar, or a different term, Lashon Nikiyah. Naki means clean. And in fact, many times the Ramban points out in the Gemarot, and when it wants to point out that sometimes the Torah talks about things that are bad in nice ways. For example, when it talks about animals, so it says, when Noach takes the animals that are to the ark, he takes animals that are tahar, the animals are shalot tahora, that are not tahar. It doesn't say that are tamei. That's called lashon nikiyah. It's using a euphemism. It's using a term not to use things that are negative. So Ramban says that's not the reason why it's called lashon kodesh. Kodesh talks about kedusha. So Ramban says, and it's a little bit similar to what Jeff was saying, that anything that is holy and sanctity is defined in the words of Hebrew. So if you want to talk about malach as an angel, you want to talk about things of Shekhinah, you want to talk about Hashem, all these terms, to really be able to express them, you have to use Hebrew because that's the original language that they were built in. So anything that deals with Kedusha, Kadosh, is going to be mentioned in Hebrew, was the original language, the language of Hebrew. So that's why he calls it Kadosh. So once again, this is a Ramban that does not talk directly about Parshas Kisisa, but is a Ramban that talks about things in general that will come up again and again. So I thought it would be important for us to look at this, and it's going to be the Ramban on 30:13. I'll find you the page here. 30:13 in the Ramban. So it's going to be found here, right here. Taf Tzadi Bet. Taf Tzadi Bet. Here. So the Ramban gets into talking about it because he's trying to understand what the coinage is all about. It's called the half shekel. That's shekel HaKodesh. Did you find it? 30:13. 30. Okay. So Ramban is commenting on the fact that's called Machzis HaShekel B'Shekel HaKodesh. So first the first piece of Ramban is dealing with the coinage. You found it?
Yeah.
Right. So he says that Moshe was the one who made this coin, and Ramban actually says Kovalo Moshe Rabbeinu Matbea Kesef Yisrael. Moshe defined the coinage of the Jewish people. Why? Ki Melech Gadol Hoya, because Moshe was a king. Moshe had the status of a king. He was the leader, and therefore he was the one who invented V'kol HaMatbea Shekel. He called it shekel. Balvush Kol HaMatbea b'Mishkal Shalem Ein Bo Pachot V'lo Kesef Sigim. This kind of coin that they used, which was used as a mode of exchange in the wilderness, was a pure coin that had no impurities built into it. Shekel HaKodesh. It was made of pure silver. And other coin that was used for many things, such as things given to the Beis HaMikdash, for Arachim and Pidyon HaBachor, to redeem the Bachor and so forth. Okay? So he goes through this in the first paragraph. That's less of our concern about the actual coinage. And then in the next paragraph, V'chein atam etzli, and it says Ramban, this is also the reason I see Sh'Rabbosino Korim Lashon Torah Lashon Kodesh. Right, the Ramban actually, I skipped the piece, but Ramban said in the first paragraph, therefore, because of all of this is used for things of Kadosh. Maybe I shouldn't have skipped, and let me just go back up. This coin that Moshe defined was used for Arachim, for making things holy to the Beis HaMikdash. It was used for redeeming a Bachar. It was used for giving Shkalim to the Mishkan. So all of the purpose of this coinage was really used primarily for things that were holy. That's why it's called Machatzis HaShekel and Shekel HaKodesh. The real need for having this coin was not primarily for business. They didn't really have that much business to do in the wilderness. What did they do? Everything came from manna to eat. Any exchange probably was more barter than it was real coinage. So the whole reason for the coins that we used in the Mishkan, in counting the people, was because they were going to be used primarily for holy kinds of things, for Pidyon Haben, for Arachim, to give something to the Beis. You want to give something to the Beis Hamikdash. You want to give the worth of this animal, or the worth of a person. I want to give to the Beis Hamikdash, or the Shkalim that were given to the Beis Hamikdash, because everything that's used is primarily for holy purposes. It's called half a shekel of Shekel HaKodesh. So the premise that the Ramban is putting down, when you talk about holiness, the coin is holy. Why? Because the purpose was to use it for holy things. And then the Ramban says, V'chein atam etzli, and this is the reason why I think, says the Ramban, according to my opinion, why the rabbis traditionally call Hebrew the language of the Torah Lashon HaKodesh. Who? Because the words of the Torah and the prophecies, because all the words of holiness that we have recorded, the words of the prophecies, the words of God, the words of the Torah were written in what language? They were written in Hebrew, and therefore it's the language of the holy tongue. It's the language the Almighty speaks. So God speaks Hebrew to His prophets. God speaks Hebrew to Moshe. God speaks Hebrew to the Jewish people. God, the words of the Torah written in Hebrew. It says the Ten Commandments say Anochi, v'lo yeh lecha, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It doesn't say I'm the Lord your God. How did God say it? What did the people hear? They heard Hashem say Anochi Hashem Elokecha. They didn't hear have no other gods. They heard Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim, v'shar dibrot Torah v'nevuah, and all the other 10 Commandments and all the other prophecies and all the other verses is all said in Hebrew. Ubonik Rabishmotav HaKadoshim, and all of these holy beings were said in Hebrew, such as Kel, which means God, or Elokim means a God, or Tzvakos, which means also God, or Shakai, which means God, and the Yud Hey, the name of Yud Hey and Vav Hey, the holy name of Hashem. V'Hashem HaGadol HaMiyuchad, and the special name of Hashem, which we don't even know how to pronounce, I told you. Ubo Bara Olamon, which God created the world. All of this was said, and originally said, in which language? In Hebrew. V'Kara Shmot Shemayim V'Aretz V'Chol HaShebohem. And God used the words in Hebrew to define everything that He created in the world. For example, when God made the heavens, He called it Shamayim. Why did He call it Shamayim? Why is it called Shamayim? Why is heavens called Shamayim? Sham, Mayim.
Water.
There's water.
So the Torah.
Well, actually, practically speaking, there are clouds.
He divided the water.
Everybody understands that the water cycle is the water comes from the clouds, comes down, evaporates, goes back up.
Right.
So when the Almighty in the first days of creation separates the firmaments from below and above, He calls this a Shamayim.
Right.
Right, and this is where Sham. There is the water. The water comes from the heavens. It's the ultimate source. I mean, this is what's the first, chicken or the egg? But the water cycle means it goes around, but inevitably it's going to start from the heavens. So Shamayim, so heavens doesn't tell you what that means. I don't know where heaven even comes from. Sky doesn't tell you what that means. But Shamayim has the implication of Sham and Mayim. It's one of the proofs that Hebrew is the original language. V'chol HaShabam. And the Malachim are also called V'chol Tzvav L'chulam B'Shem Yikra. God gave the name to all His angels with names in Hebrew. Michael, Gavriel, B'Lashonahu, Michael and Gabriel. Right? Those are just translations. They mean nothing. But Michael, the El at the end, is a symbolism that we're talking about a holy being. Ubo Karashimot LaKadoshim Asher Ba'aretz. And with these names, with this language, He gave names to the holy people in this land, such as Avram. Why is Avram called Avram? Av Hamon Goyim. He's the father of many nations. So you don't get that in Abraham. What does Abraham mean? Nothing. Or Yitzchak is called Yitzchak from the root of tzachak, to laugh. Or Yaakov is called Yaakov because he's holding Ba'akev, he's holding onto the heel of Esav who slipped out before him. Or Shlomo is called Shlomo from Shalom, right? Or Shlemut. So all of these names have an implication that what is the language that's being given for the holy people, the holy beings, the holiness of the world, is written in Hebrew. And therefore, the term of this, the language of the scripture is called Lashon HaKodesh. So in other words, the Ramban says the reason it's called Lashon HaKodesh is because everything that's holy really makes a lot more sense when you understand it in Hebrew. Okay? So that's the Ramban's approach. And now he quotes Rambam. Rav Bomar B'mor Nevuchim. The Rav, when he says Rav, he means the Rambam, Maimonides, writes in the Guide to Perplex. Al tachshov shnikva l'shnein lashon hakodesh l'gavatenu or l'tohutenu. Don't think that our language is called lashon hakodesh because we are arrogant about it, or because we're making a mistake about it. We're like puffed up about it. Aval hu b'din, but it's really true, says the Rambam. Rambam is a rationalist. He doesn't want to talk about spiritual beings at this point. He wants to talk about rational reasons for mitzvot. He says, why is it called Lashon HaKodesh? Because Lashon Kodesh, lo yimtzu bo shemot. We don't find names in Hebrew directly la'ever habi'ilah, for the organ of sex, which means the penis. Bazachar banakeva, or for the male, or the same thing for the female. You don't find actual names for the genitalia in Ivrit itself. Ola tipa, or for semen. Ola shesen. Shesen is for urine. Ola tzoa, or for feces. Rak b'kinoi. We only find this in terms of terms that are very euphemistically about it. There is no word to talk about these very bodily functions, which are very animalistic, which are, I don't want to say, we use the term dirty, but it doesn't really mean dirty, but are not holy things. They're things we do because we're animals. And he says, now there are some roots that are very similar to it. When it says shegel actually means a consort, means the king's consort. So kihu shem isha muzumed lemishkaf. So consort, shegel doesn't only mean for sex, it means someone who is set aside to be with the king. V'yomar yishgalena. And al pima shenichtav alav perusho yikach isha lepilegish, he took a concubine. But doesn't really talk about what goes on with the concubine. V'hinei en tzarach l'tam zeh. The Ramban says you don't need a reason of the Rambam for that. Ki hadavar barur shalashon kodesh kodeshim hu k'moshi pirashti. Says the reason it's holy is what I said. In other words, I'm not saying the Rambam is wrong necessarily, even though he tends to go on and disagree with the Rambam a little bit. He says I think my reason is better. In other words, the Rambam is right. Rambam says it's about because we don't talk about these physical parts of the body and the functions of the body in Lashon HaKodesh. We only talk about it very directly.
Rambam's turning around the positive. We do talk about holiness.
And when Ramban says we talk about the holiness.
So why have a word like Amalek in the language, the lowest form of life?
That's the people.
But talk about not being holy. It's the lowest form of mankind. Why have that in the language?
Well, you need to know who attacked us. You need to know who you're supposed to be against.
Yeah,
It's just identifying people. It's not. There's war. War is bad too. So why is there war? So when it talks about things, according to the Rambam, it's not talking about things that are really just very bodily functions, things that are private functions. Those terms don't really come up, right? For example, it's really true. Now there are some exceptions you could argue with, and the Rambam, we're not going to go into, talks about it. But the Ramban's basically argument against the Rambam, and he writes in the next paragraph that if the Rambam is right, then it shouldn't be called Lashon Kodesh, it should be called Lashon Nikiyah. That's what he writes in the next paragraph.
Yeah, but that being said, Rabbi, I mean, that may be true for the Torah, but the people on the street, the local guys, when they're talking, sitting down having a drink, they're using words that are probably not included in here.
I mean, people in Israel. People
who spoke the
Israelis who
language.
speak.
Yeah,
correct. Well, so the answer is that mostly when they spoke, probably until the 20th century, Hebrew is less of a spoken language than a written language. The language that people usually spoke was people that speak Aramaic. In the days of the Mishnah, they spoke Aramaic on the street. In Europe, they spoke Yiddish. In your country, what did they speak? Ladino? No, Ladino would be Spain, or a similar kind of whatever. What is their name for it?
Haketia.
There you go, whatever you said.
Hakatia? Never heard that.
That's what Moroccan Jewish, is that it? Jewish Moroccan.
Spanish, Arabic.
It's not French.
And Lashon Kodesh actually was really retained for writing holy books. Really it wasn't a language of communication necessarily in most cases.
No, what I'm saying is that in
so they're not talking
biblical times,
what did they speak? I don't
when
know.
two ordinary guys sitting having a beer,
No clue.
talking, what are they talking about?
Talking about Torah.
Oh yeah, right.
Why not?
I don't know. Then they were not talking Lashon Kodesh. Then they were talking Hebrew. No, it's in the Lashon Kodesh. Let's say Lashon Kodesh is a subset of Hebrew. Let's say Lashon Kodesh was the original language, the pure language, right? So, look, there's in English there's gutter language, and then there's proper language.
Of course, but that's how it develops.
So, and we know this. It doesn't mean it's not English, but it's surely not the king's English or the queen's English.
No.
when you talk about a proper English, they're the terms that you would never use in the courthouse.
But these words are included in the dictionary.
Okay, because the dictionary includes words that are used, but they're not included in the language that you use in proper settings.
No.
As my mother, Flangion, would say, when we kids would say these things, she'd say, "Go speak outside. Go outside. You want to talk like that? Don't speak in my house." Mm-hmm. You know, that's how we were raised. In other words, there's a proper way to say things. Sometimes things slip out. But you're right. I mean, today there are no boundaries, unfortunately. Not in language, not in manners, not in behavior patterns. But the point of it, the Torah itself does put boundaries. The same way it puts boundaries in what you can eat, it puts boundaries in what you should speak. And there are words that the Torah feels are just not proper. Right? Sometimes the term that's used in some of the songs is called nivel peh. You're using words that are naval, that are disgusting words.
So how would you, in those days, describe something that is a part of the body that is not?
Yeah, it's a great question.
How would you?
So the way that it's used, sometimes people would say, talking about the male organ.
Right.
That's not referring to.
There's a male organ.
There's a male organ. Now, organ is a general term.
Yeah.
But if Hashem created mankind, Moshe, Hashem created the whole world, then what's the issue with it? This is Hashem's creation.
So because there's some parts of us that are more animalistic and less spiritual.
But Hashem still created it. It's part
of course it is. But having said that, it's not something that we kind of show off. We cover certain parts of our body. We're supposed to cover certain parts of our body.
Adam and Eve never covered it at the beginning.
Well, they learned right away that they should once they ate from the Eitz Hadat. Correct. That's exactly the lesson. That they suddenly realized that there's a separation between them and being animals. So they put on clothing about those parts that were very uniquely sexual. Mm-hmm. Right. So as a result, what the Ramban is saying, it's not talking about whether these are words that there are Hebrew equivalents today, or what people said on the street, or how people referred to certain parts of the body in the anatomy, right? In the same way that no one can put limits on how people refer to the parts of the anatomy on the street, right? There are biological terms and there are street terms. What people say, you can't confuse the two. So therefore. So as a result, the Ramban is simply saying that as a rule, the Torah goes out of its way not to talk about these things. Okay. So that's what it means Lashon Kodesh. Now, what the two opinions are not that far apart. One is more positive, one is more not negative. Right? Rambam is saying basically it's Lashon Kodesh because we don't talk about dirty parts of the body. Ramban is saying no, it's holy because this is the terminology, the language for the holy items. If you really want to find the etymology of all the holy things in the world, go back to what Hebrew is.
Yes.
Right. So therefore, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Malachim, Michal, Gavriel, etc., etc. Right. So, but just it's in terms of what that is. That takes us up to what the Ramban is going to do for this week. Let's come to deal with the Sivas.
Appropriately enough, next week is Parsha Shkalim.
That's true. Next week is Parsha Shkalim. So we'll go. Okay. There are two pieces on Shabbos here in the Siva Shalom. I think I want to do the second one and try to see if I have time for the first one. Okay. This is, I'm going to go to the first page is page Reish Mem Beis. I'm going to go page Reish Mem Dalet. Okay. Now, by the way, as you've seen, the Siva Shalom kind of talks a lot about Shabbos, but in Parshas Kisisa actually is where Shabbos comes up. It's mentioned Shabbos. But by the way, just tell you one thing very quickly before we come to Siva Shalom. This you'll see it in 2 days. You'll see when you get to Parshas Kisisa that the first 2 aliyahs are extremely long, and the remaining 5 aliyahs are very short. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Yes.
Yes. And the answer is
because it was the Levium,
right?
Because they didn't participate in it,
correct.
And they could be associated.
Because the first 2/3 or the second third of the parsha deals with the sin of the golden calf. Now, the sin of the golden calf affects the Jewish people and affected every Jewish person there except the tribe of Levi, it looks like. So because the granddaddies of the Levium did not serve the golden calf, so the aliyah of Levi is given to the aliyah of Levi is given to a Levi. I meant the aliyah about the golden calf is given to a Levi, which is that middle chunk of it.
Wasn't us.
Well, it was
which is
my granddad, which is right. Because they didn't serve it.
Right, okay.
Because anytime when you get an aliyah to the Torah, this is the value that people feel. When you give an aliyah to the Torah, you're really actually testifying about the Torah.
Yeah.
Right? They used to... But you're saying that you actually support this or believe in this.
Right.
There used to be a custom in some communities that they were very careful who got which aliyah. So if they knew someone was not a Shomer Shabbos, they wouldn't give an aliyah that deals with Shabbos. Or they would give an aliyah that deals with kashrus with someone that they knew was very, very careful about the laws of kosher. And now, the question was, some mitzvahs are hard to find. For example, the interpersonal mitzvah, you really got to look hard sometimes to find someone you think is really 100% kosher. Right? Like something like Parshas Kedoshim, or Parshas, which the whole beginning talks about the interpersonal relations, or Parshas Mishpatim. But we're not that careful about that anymore. In other words, no one says, okay, we're going to be learning about, kosher. Let's make sure we choose a person who we know only eats, super duper special glat mahadrin kosher, right? Or we're going to choose a person that we know never cheated on their income taxes. Or there were no gray areas in how they filed their returns.
Never took a paperclip from the office.
Never took a paperclip from the office. There's a good example. We're going to choose a person for the aliyah that talks about lotigno, for the person who didn't take a paperclip home from the office. Okay, that's what it means. So we're not like that. However, globally, because the Egel Hazav is such a big deal, right? So therefore we choose a Levi. Because we choose a Levi for the Egel Hazav, and that's a fairly long piece of story, so it means the first part of it means if that has to be the second aliyah, then the first aliyah has to be the Parshas Kisisa until that point. That's the first third. Okay? The second third of the Parsha is therefore going to be about the Egel Hazav, which is given to the Levi, and that leaves the remaining 5 aliyahs for the last third of the Parsha. So you'll see it'll jump out at you if you're there and following the laning on Shabbos, and that's the reason for it. Okay, and the reason why it's broken up that way, because normally you look at the parsha, it tends to be divided up into more or less equal sections or topical sections. Okay, anyways, at the end of the first aliyah, you don't need to really go back and look in the Chumash. It talks about the mitzvah of Shabbos. This is right before actually Moshe goes up to Har Sinai, or before Moshe comes down. So it mentions the following thing. It said, I'll just read you the psukim. And a number of psukim go back and forth. It says, Achas Shabbos tishmoru. You should observe my Shabboses. Ki osi beini uvenechem. It's a sign between me and you. L'dor sechem forever. L'dad ki Hashem kadishchem. I am the Lord who sanctifies you. By keeping Shabbos, you know that God sanctifies us. Ushmartem es Shabbos. Keep Shabbos. Ki kodesh yilachem. It's holy. B'chalel mochi. Those who kind of just desecrated, die. You have to keep, anyone who does malacha, you will be will have karet. And it says, Hashem work for 6 days. The 7th day is a Shabbos. It's holy. You must. And then it says the part that everybody knows how to sing. The children of Israel shall observe the Shabbos, make the Shabbos an eternal covenant for their generations. It's between me and the Jewish people. It's a commandment or a sign forever. Because 6 days God made the world, the heavens and the earth. The 7th day He rested and he was refreshed. So there's a whole lot of psukim here. The first piece of the Nesivos Shalom, which I'm either going to get to do with you inside or kind of summarize, talks about why there's so much. First, it talks about keeping Shabbos to you, and then the second part talks about the Jewish people keeping Shabbos for Shammos. He talks about 2 different levels of Shabbos. I'll come back to that. But in general, you see that Shabbos actually creates a bond between us and the Almighty. There's something unique about Shabbos. There's nothing else, so very little things that are referred to as being considered an oath, a covenant between us. Brit Milah is an oath. The circumcision is a covenant, but we understand that. We understand physically, you're creating a change in the body. Any covenant, you do something, like you sign on the dotted line. So what is Shabbos all about?
Why is it inserted? I'm sorry, but why is it inserted here? We're talking about all the utensils and the building of the Mishkan, right?
Correct.
And all of a sudden we're talking about Shabbat.
I think because it's really a summary of all this is kind of, we had the 10 Commandments, we have now the building of the Mishkan, and right before the Jewish people sin with the golden calf, we kind of want to do a summary of all the commandments. So the fact that Shabbos is equivalent to doing all the commandments sometimes is so valuable and so important. It's put here almost like a wrap-up to everything we learned about commandments. That's the way I understand it. There may be other reasons as well. So, and therefore, it's here before things go awry and before they start worshiping the golden calf. Everything is kind of like peaceful. This is the peace, the calm before the storm. What's the best ideal to keep the Shabbos itself? So that I think that's a good answer. So here's the question. So we have Shabbos, we have the Jewish people, and we have the Almighty. Right? In general, we talk about the Shabbos. We have the Jewish people, we have the Almighty, and somehow Shabbos is creating a covenant between us and the Almighty. What does that really mean? What does it mean Shabbos creates a covenant between us and the Almighty? Anybody?
If you keep Shabbos, then you have a communion. You have a
connection.
A connection.
Let's see now. We accept the Torah. It means that it's part of the commandments. That means that it's part of the acceptance of...
But why is it called an oath? It's a covenant. An oath means it's a sign. It's a sign forever. For example, you and I are going to kind of make a deal. We're going to do $1 billion deal, and we're going to formalize it as a oath, as a sign of what our agreement is. We're going to put our signatures on it, or we're going to, we're going to build a statue to commemorate this, or we're going to kind of mark it in some kind of fashion, right? Or we're going to go for a photo op.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? So, what am I doing? A photo op with the Almighty? I'm signing on a dotted line. Where's God signing? How can I sign with God? We're so different. How can I and God be creating a covenant? You and I can make a covenant because we're equals. We're both physical. But the Almighty is not physical. So how can I make a covenant with something that I really can't even see and can't even sign with? So what does that mean? How does Shabbos work? I think that's a fundamental question we always have to ask ourselves. We don't ask the question because we assume it's so. And the answer is before we do the Nesiva Shalom.
That's like Naseh Nishma, no? We got to follow it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
I guess what you're saying basically, it's everything that God gives to us the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it's Shabbat or other things.
You're thinking.
It's main olam haba.
It's main olam haba. Well, good. It's part of like a little bit of olam haba. Which is olam haba for the soul and me as well.
That's right. Shabbat is 1/60th of olam haba.
Correct. So therefore, it's connecting my soul to a world which the Almighty lives in, which is a soul world. Okay, so it's connecting a spiritual part of me to an existence that is a spiritual existence. So it's helping my soul enjoy part of what they will eventually move to when it separates from my body. So the body can't really connect. I connect it to my soul by the body celebrating Shabbat. So in other words, there are two things. One is you have Shabbat in the abstract. You got spiritual Shabbat, and you have the physicality, a human being trying to observe Shabbat in order to connect to the abstract.
But Shabbat is a commandment, correct?
Yes, it is. It has many commandments.
But it's not a commandment. It can't be a commandment just for Olam Haba.
No, it's
not. It has to be a commandment for
right here and now. Correct. But the commandment is on this earth to feel that it's part of Olam Haba. That there's a spiritual celebration, spiritual commemoration with Olam Haba, with a little bit of Olam Haba here. So here's what Nesiva Shalom actually says. Nesiva Shalom says that you have to think of this as trying to combine two separate parts. And you have glue, some kind of adhesive that is able to combine two separate things. Some adhesives only work with similar kinds of things. Some adhesives only work when there's a tight bond, like crazy glue. If the pieces are not tightly together, it's not going to work. Some adhesives can work to combine different things together. So if I have wood and plastic and I want to keep them together, what do I do with them? I can't burn them together. Wood will burn to a crisp. The plastic will melt. So I kind of put some kind of adhesive together. The adhesive is a third party. So it says, the Nesiva Shalom suggests, and of course we're speaking a little bit in the abstract, that Shabbat is almost like the adhesive that is able to meld a human being who's physical to the Almighty who is not physical. And therefore Shabbat has physical as well as spiritual mixed together in this mush, or this chulent we call Shabbat, or the Shabbat chulent, so to speak. Not the Shabbat chulent, just joking, that combines us together. So celebrating or commemorating Shabbat is able to connect us to the Almighty in this fashion. So in order to get two disparate things together, I need something in the middle. Nesiva Shalom actually has a theory, he's quoting, I think, the Zohar, that in everything that God created, there are intermediate stages. In other words, this is not evolution, but that in everything that the Almighty makes, there are stages between the different forms of creation. So the same way that there are plants and there are animals, so he suggests that there are somehow something that's an intermediary between them. Maybe you would say that between animals and between human beings, the intermediary is the primates. But there are some things between plants and animals that probably are very difficult for scientists to classify, because they are a little bit like a plant and a little bit like an animal. They're cross. I won't say cross breeds, but they're just intermediaries. I'm not quite sure how to take it down below that. How do you take that difference between a plant and a rock? Maybe it would be like a lichen or something. Lichen? What do you pronounce it? Lichen or lichen? Lichen, okay? Or something similar. But in other words, you've got different categories. Between each category, you've got something that's a combination between the two. So same way Shabbat is a combo or an adhesive or a connector between physicality and between spirituality. That's the uniqueness of what Shabbat is. That makes it an oath, a covenant between us and between the Almighty. Nothing else can do it that way. Okay? So let's take a look at this piece now. So Shmartem et Shabbat ki kodesh yilachem. The Nesivos Shalom on page Reish Mem quotes the pasuk, one of the psukim that we're going to that was found in Parshas Kisi. So you're going to observe Shabbat ki kodesh yilachem. It's holy for you, right? B'mechilta ito ala pasuk hazeh. This Mechilta says Magish Shabbat mosefet kedushat al Yisrael. This Shabbos adds holiness to the Jewish people. Okay, and the Shabbos, and he quotes from a Zohar. Then they skip a line. Al pasuk zeh Shabbat hu etzem hakodesh. Shabbat is the actual holiness itself, and it writes there Shabbat he shows l'chol hakedushot. Shabbat is the source, the root of all of the holiness. The Yehudi harotzeh lekabel amshich al atzmo b'nyonei kedoshim to you. If a Jew wants to become holy and stress holiness, where should you start from? Don't start from Yom Kippur. Don't start from Rosh Hashanah. Don't start from food. Yatchil mi Shabbat shimen hakedusha. It starts from Shabbat. That God blessed the 7th day and sanctified us. This is Bereshis chapter 2. Shabbat hu hamayan l'chol inyan kedusha. The Shabbat is the fountain or the well, the root of all the pieces of kedusha. So Shabbat is the source of kedusha that defines Shabbat. So now we ask, Ubir inyan ha-Shabbat shemosifa kedusha l'Yisrael. What does it mean that it adds kedusha to Israel? V'yisod amein ha-kedusha. It's the foundation and it's the well of holiness. Yesh lefarish al pi ma de'isa od b'Tana D'Ve'Eliyahu. He says based upon a medrash called Tana D'Ve'Eliyahu in Perek Chavav, very famous medrash, very famous book. Mikan shekdushat HaKadosh Baruch Hu kedushat Shabbat u'kedushat Yisrael. The Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Kedusha of Shabbat, and the Kedusha of Israel, Shloshtam Chashivot Ke'echad. So the Medrash says that the three of them are three holinesses together, three almost equal holinesses. As it says, B'Kedushat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the holiness of God, it says, V'yata Kadosh, you God are holy. So we know God is holy. You didn't need a pasuk to know that. B'Kedushat HaShabbos, what does it say? Ushmartem et HaShabbat ki kodesh yilachem. That's one of the quotes here in Parshat Kisi, so right before it says it's Sheni. It's still calling Shabbat Kodesh. B'Kedushat Yisrael, it's also says Maksiv Kodesh Yisrael Hashem Reshit to Asa. That the Jewish people are Kodesh to Hashem. So the Jewish people are called Kodesh. So each of these three items are Kodesh: God, Israel, and Shabbat. So that's the Medrash. Now, Medrash writes a lot of things, but it's hard to understand them. Says the Nesivos Shalom, this is a very difficult thing to understand. What does it mean the three of them are equal together? They're all Kadosh. How could you say, make an equivalent between the holiness of God and the holiness of the Jewish people? The holiness of God is the super holiness, holy of holies, above any other type of holy. How can you compare God's holiness, which is so abstractly holy, so holy, 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 compared to the Kedusha of Shabbat and Kedusha of the Jewish people? How do you make them together? So here's where the adhesive comes in. Achen hanyan bazeh kedisa b'sefer hakadosh meir einayim. It quotes from sefer Meor Einayim. Lavin inyan hadveikut eichu. To talk about the connection. Dveikut, how do you translate dveikus? Connection. But dveikus to Hashem means like I'm connecting to Hashem, closely connected to Hashem. To talk about how you get devekus to Hashem. How does it happen? God doesn't really have purpose as we know it and boundaries. And a human being has a purpose and has boundaries. We have an end. We know where we're going. We don't know where we're going, but we end up somewhere. Right? And we have boundaries, what we can do. We're physical. How can two opposites like this come close together for dvekus? God gave to us the Shabbat, which is the Mumutza, which is like the middle ground between Israel and to their Father in heaven. and it's mached, it connects, it unites, and ties us to the Almighty, as it says there. Between all different types of levels of creation, there's a middle level, like primates, like animals to man. There's a middle level called primates.
Yeah, I'm sorry, going back to the question there about the connection between God because He's so holy and man because but you have the Moshe Rabbeinu and God. They speak together. They're joined together.
Okay, so that's Moshe. That's correct.
He's man and he's God. So.
Correct. So that's because Moshe is on a super high level. Most of us are not that level.
No, but he's still man. Is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. So that's a general question about Nevuah. How does God communicate to prophets in general, not just Moshe?
Yeah.
Any prophet. Right, exactly. How do they hear God's voice? But that's not speaking to every person. This is really about everybody can connect to God.
Right.
So I can't become a Moshe. I am a Moshe. I can't become Moshe Rabbeinu. I can't become a Navi. We don't have a Nevuah anymore. Right? I have certain limits.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe a prophet is going to be always on this kind of level. When can I envision being close enough to God that I can connect to God on a very closely tight thing? It's Shabbos which allows me to do it. Now I don't have Shabbos 7 days a week, but the connection that I do on Shabbat lasts for the other days of the week. It's like I glue something together; it's going to stay. It's not going to stay forever. So after a while, the glue will come apart. But if the adhesive is really tight, it's going to work for a long period of time. Eventually, I'll need to renew it. The same with Shabbat, I renew it every 7 days to renew my connection to God.
Yeah.
So the question is good, but it's more of a general question about prophecy than about me. So how do I do this? Did I skip a line? The power of Shabbat connects me, glues me to the Almighty. If I really can't be completely connected, why? I'm a different type of existence. Because Shabbat, which is a middle ground, I connect through this Shabbat. Because Shabbat has powers of being spiritual. It's part of Me'elon Haba. And has physical. I enjoy Shabbat. Cholin, Kishka, fat foods that make me fatter. Okay? It was 3 Sudot. The celebratory. I daven with my mouth. So therefore 3 of them come together on Shabbat. ולכאורה גם בעניין הקדושה קשה כדברי המור עיניים והכי יכולים ישראל להמשיך עליהם את קדושת הקדוש ברוך הוא שיקראו קודש ישראל Hashem. How can we be called Kodesh? The Jewish people are Kodesh to Hashem. הרי קדושת הקדוש ברוך הוא מדרגה עליונה לאין אורך. How can we ever say we're Kodesh to Hashem? We're Kodesh like to Hashem. We're not Kodesh to Hashem. Hashem is Kodesh and I'm here. No matter how holy I am, I never reach God. ומה שייך שקדושת הקדוש ברוך הוא קדושת ישראל יהיו חשיבות כאחת? How do you put us together? אלא שגם זה בכוח קדושת Shabbat. This is as well the Kedusha the Shabbat. Shehiyah Mumutzah Shayadei Cholim Yisrael Amshich Kedusha the Kadosh Baruch Hu Yod Kodesh Yisrael Hashem. Through Shabbat, I can raise my level to be tightly connected to God, to be called Kodesh Yisrael Hashem. V'zeh perish Shloshtam Chashivot Kach. This is why it's repeating himself. This is why they're chashiv like one. Shekasher Yesh Kol Shlosha Dahainu Gamit Koach HaShabbat Shemumutzah Az Metachlim Kol HaKedusha. And all the Kedusha comes together. V'zeh Ma Shamru Shabbat Mosifa Kedusha Al Yisrael. This is what I mean. The Shabbat adds Kedusha, holiness to the Jewish people. Why? And it's a mayan, it's a well, it's a wellspring, it's a root, shoresh of Kedusha. Only through Shabbat can we actually connect to the divine. To keep Shabbat, once again quoting from the Psukim and Kisisa. It's holy. Shetishmur the Shabbat, keep Shabbat, because from it you'll actually be able to come holy and holy and holy and holy and so forth and another. Okay? Now, how do I become so? What is Shabbat all about? Shabbat is about connecting to God. Shabbat is also about celebrating. Shabbat is the celebratory kind of thing. So he's going to write in the next paragraph that the purpose of man being created in this world is to give man good. Now you are going to say, but I'm having a real tough time, right? Or if I'm having a good day today, I've had days that have been not so good. So how can you really say that God is creating man to give good in this world to really give him tov? So the response he's going to say it's really about the Shabbat. On the Shabbat, it's not about me physically having good. My neshama has an enjoyment on Shabbat. It filters down to me. But on Shabbat, when the neshama gets a bit of taste of the Olam Haba, which it will enjoy, the neshama begins to have an enjoyment, the neshama begins to have tov, and that tov really can affect me as well. That's what he suggests. Not sure if you want to accept it or maybe think Zechah Bissel about it. עוד יש לומר בפסוק ושמרתם את השבת כקודש יילכם על פי מה דאיסא בספר הקדוש על something or other בתפילת שבת. It says what it says in Shachris, אתה קידש את יום השביעי לשמך, אתה קידש את יום השביעי לשמך, תכליס מעשי שמיים וארץ. This is taken from Shachrit. You sanctified this for your name to make the purpose of heaven and earth, which means Shabbat hi tachlit habriya. Shabbat is the purpose of the existence. Do you live 6 days to get to Shabbat, or do you celebrate Shabbat to live for the next 6 days? The purpose of life is Shabbat. The reason God made the world is He leitiv lebruav, to make the place better for those who are here. God made a world that we should be able to enjoy. Says the Nesiv Shalom, not true. It's a world of complaining. This doesn't look like a good world. How can I say it's such a good world? Nothing is really always, things are not always so good. Ella the parish leitiv lebruav. It doesn't mean to make the created good. It's not to create la tava gashmit, physically good, ela tava la neshama, spiritually good. My neshama has a time to enjoy within this world. The neshama on Shabbat has a time to enjoy the closeness to the Almighty, to celebrate with the Almighty, which is the time of Shabbat. Nothing is compared to the enjoyment of the soul, and therefore this is what it means. This is the beauty that God has made in the world, that not for me physically, but for my soul itself, which will enjoy the Shabbat here before it goes on to the world to come, which will have a separate time to absorb. So that's where the second piece of the Tzivot Shalom. The first piece, I think, is stronger than the second piece of this piece, because it's hard for us to understand what our neshama really is. But it's about celebrating it.
So if Shabbat is so important,
yes,
why wasn't it given right out the creation of the world?
It was.
Are you saying that Adam and Eve had to keep Shabbat?
I don't know. It's found in the first creation story.
It doesn't get much earlier than that.
Yes, they keep Shabbat. They keep Shabbat. They may keep Shabbat outside the Garden of Eden, according to the Medrash. They're thrown out, but they keep Shabbat. Okay? Yeah. Now, in the previous piece, I just want to bring a couple of pieces here. So in the previous piece, he talks about the fact that because there's so much verbiage here about Shabbat, he says there are two levels of Shabbat. There's Shabbat in the abstract and Shabbat that I keep. Sometimes they're not the same. Shabbat in the abstract is when you really can enjoy Shabbat. You feel that Shabbat is an elevation. Now, what's Shabbat that sometimes people keep? They feel it's a Shabbat that I can't do things. Or it's a Shabbat that I rest. Shabbat that I relax. Relaxing and spiritually enjoying are not necessarily the same kinds of things. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? So in other words, he has a whole long discussion. If you go back to Reish Mem Gimel, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but he talks about two levels of Shabbat. Reish Mem Gimel, the page before this, on the right side. It says, first it talked about the first new paragraph on the right side. So it said, "V'shabsatai tishmoru," you keep my Shabbat. This refers to Bechinat Sheyesh B'Shabbat, the level of Shabbat. Ki oti b'nei u'v'nechem. This is the covenant between me and the Jewish people. That this is all about celebrating Shabbat. Shenyano Shabbat shekulo kodesh kodashim b'tarusa d'leila. You get kind of this inspiration from on high. Hameir b'mocholi bo v'rosho yudi, which enlivens or envelops the brain, the heart, and the limbs of a Jewish of the person who celebrates this. And he says this is really what the Shabbat is. If you really celebrate Shabbat, you've got that level that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets up for you. That's one Bechina, that's one level of Shabbat. And if you really can probe the secrets of Shabbat, you can reach that level. And that's why the pasuk talks about the importance of Shabbat being a Mekadesh and bringing sanctity. And the second level of Shabbat he says, and this is the bottom paragraph on the right column, is V'shamru v'neisos Shabbat lasot Shabbat. People are going to keep Shabbat, which is going to be a lower level. This is not about keeping Shabbat, you keep Shabbat, but the Jewish people keeping Shabbat that God gave to them, which is B'nei Yisrael Lefi Arkam. Shadagata Shabbat lasot Shabbat, to do the Shabbat. It's not L'kadesh to Shabbat, to do the Shabbat in this world itself. And that's a lower kind of level. And sometimes people only reach the lower level, but sometimes people realize that they can break out of that and reach to this higher level itself. And when it talks about keeping, if you were to keep Shabbat, one Shabbat, or if the whole world kept one Shabbat, which level of Shabbat does it mean? The higher level of Shabbat. Not that people just don't work, that people recognize what that is. Now, why will that Shabbat, if everybody keeps one Shabbat, why will that bring Mashiach? Because that level of Shabbat is higher than time. That's a spiritual celebration of Shabbat. So if you can keep one Shabbat, you suddenly connect to all Shabbats in the world. Right? Now, what happens if you don't break up to that, if you don't make that higher Shabbat? You've missed the purpose of Shabbat. You still got a lot of work to do. And he actually quotes at the end, he says that if a person who keeps this lower level of Shabbat, which is important, you go to Olam Haba, but you don't have the feeling for Shabbat. So what will you be? You'll be like in the Olam Haba, you'll be like a bench in the Olam Haba that people sit on. In other words, it doesn't mean it literally. It means the same way that a bench is inanimate and doesn't have feelings. So if you kind of celebrate Shabbat without the feelings of Litaneg, Oneg Shabbat, that's really what you'll be missing.
Shabbat's 25 hours. Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, so in a way, if Shabbos is main Olam Haba,
yes,
it's like it's a preparation for Olam Haba.
Correct.
It's not like a gift from Olam Haba to us, but it's the other way. It's like we're preparing so that we can understand Olam Haba better, because we've experienced it.
Right. So it's preparing you, and to experience it, you got to probe your soul to make sure that you can feel it or begin to feel it. But it's not just about relaxing. It's about a positive kind of connection to the spiritual. It's relaxing. It's refraining from creative work, that you can focus on the creativity of your soul to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's really what he's trying to say. So in other words, Shabbat is not simply not working. There are prohibitions, but that's not the key to Shabbat. The key to this highest level of Shabbat is to kind of do a positive connection to the Almighty by recognizing there's something greater than me. That the whole 6 days of the week I work and I work and I work and I work and I lose focus of where the Almighty is, because I got to make a living and I got to do things and I got to get out there and I got to eat and I got to sleep and I got to do everything else. Come Shabbat, I got a day to hang back from that and probe that more.
So here's my question. We follow Shabbat, 25 hours.
Yeah.
And how do we live it? So relaxation is kind of
how do we live it?
Kind of a misnomer, relaxation.
Yes.
You're supposed to go to shul and study Torah.
Right. Go to shul, study Torah.
What else? What am I missing, Moshe?
You sanctify your meal. My meal is no longer about grabbing food and eating and benching and going, I'm finished. It's about celebrating. At the meal itself, I either say Divrei Torah, I sing Zmirot, and I know it's Zmirot of praise to Hashem. So within my meal itself, which is physical, I'm now sanctifying that as well. When I pray, the davening is longer and I say it slower so I can focus on what I'm saying, so I can begin to think about it. Think about what it means to have a soul within me. I listen to the Torah, so there's a Torah. I'm studying Torah publicly. Now I can study Torah privately as well. Right? So I mean, look, but the point is sometimes you go for a nap and you wake up and you lost Shabbos. You lost 2 hours of Shabbos.
That's my question.
Right.
So should one not nap?
I didn't say that, but then when you wake up, you're refreshed, and you can do more for the rest. But if people think that the purpose of Shabbat is simply to sleep the whole Shabbat, that's missing Shabbat. You sleep Shabbat, you rest Shabbat because you're resting in general. You feel more relaxed, but the relaxation is the setup, is the preparation for you to be able to think about what the purpose of life is all about. And that kind of cocoon for Shabbat should give you that's the adhesive of Dveikut that allows you to kind of stay connected to Hashem for the next 6 days. As you leave Shabbat, you begin running around the world to do all the kinds of stuff we have to do. That's the key. That's the key to Shabbat. But in other words, there are two of the challenges to kind of rise from the first one to the second. Now, obviously, a person who does not experience Shabbat, their challenge is to reach the first level of Shabbat. But a person who understands what Shabbat is, that it's a day that we don't work, can begin working on the second level, which is the Shabbat of Kedusha. Dan?
So I heard you say that Shabbat is the Dveikut to Hashem.
Yes.
But I learned that the Dveikut to Hashem is achieved through Dveikut to Talmidei Chachamim.
Maybe,
That's
but
what I knew until today.
yeah, but if all you do is dveikut, so in other words, because you can't visualize Hashem, because you can't visualize a spiritual being that's completely spiritual, the closest thing you can think about spirituality is when you see a person who's completely connected to the Almighty. That's an inspiration.
Actually, that fits into what you were saying before about the transitional element,
Right.
like Hashem
Right.
creates
right.
transitions.
Correct. So I guess they're both correct. But in others, by giving me a visualization of what it means to see a person who understands it, I can better visualize it myself. I was reading last night. I came across a comment by a person, Rav Menachem Zemba, and I remember the name, but I didn't remember his story. So I went to look it up. Rav Menachem Zemba was an Eloi who lived in Europe right before World War II. He was actually in the Warsaw Ghetto. And he maintained his composure all the way through the last days of the Warsaw Ghetto. In fact, he was killed because as the Nazis were liquidating the ghetto, and he was together with his family, they thought they had an opportunity to escape from one house that they were starting to go to run across the street. And the daughter ran across the street and she made it, and she gave a sign. The sign was really meant to be they shouldn't cross, and he thought it meant to cross. So he grabbed his grandchild, at 5 years old, he ran across and he got machine gunned down. It was a terrible story. And worse than that is that when they liquidated the ghetto, the rest of his family was sent to Treblinka where they all were killed. So no one got out of there alive. But what inspired me is I read that the liquidation of the ghetto happens, the fight of the Warsaw Ghetto actually takes place on Pesach. The first night of Seder, they write that Rav Menachem Zemba was sitting and reading his Haggadah like nothing was going on. I don't know how anyone could do that. I mean, I couldn't imagine I'd be in knots. With the Nazis are coming, the war machine is coming in, they're going to liquidate the ghetto, and here I am, and I'm sitting reading the Haggadah like everything is fine, like God took me out of Egypt, like I'm free, and the cannons are going off in the background, and things are coming apart. So that kind of thing, that kind of story, when I see that type of Talmud Chacham, Rav Menachem and some of his Svarim have really survived the war. So that's why I was reading one of his chidushim that he had written on Masechet Shabbos. That's how I got into this, because he wrote a couple of Zera Avram. He wrote another sefer as well, which were published before the war and have remained after him. But that kind of story makes me bring close to Hashem. Here's a person, there's something that I can aspire to, because I don't think I could do this. Right? But that's not the same as saying that I'm connecting to Hashem with Shabbat. Shabbat allows me to connect directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seeing a Talmud Chacham allows me to connect to what Hashem is, because I see what a person does when they connect to Hashem. But to create my soul directly to Hashem, I can do it in Shabbat. I think that's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
Jeff?
By the way, Rabbi Zemba?
Yeah, Menachem Zemba.
Menachem Zemba. He accepted his decree. That's the fact. He accepted it.
Where he was.
He accepted there was a decree.
Yes.
That's a hard thing to accept.
Correct. Yes. All right. So that's the part about Shabbat, and I think it's an important idea to recognize these two levels. I sometimes when I say these things, I'm speaking to myself as well. So if you think I'm sometimes harsh about, I still got a lot to go. I still have a lot to go as well. So the Shabbat is coming, and this is the parsha about Shabbat. Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break. And we're starting a new Mishnah, and this is the picture of the Mishnah we're going to do. Here's the picture, but I have to probably explain to you what it is. This was a way to create an extended candle. In other words, the lamps that they normally use were these little lamps, like the Aladdin's lamps. We've talked about this. And they used them. So we're not talking about necessarily a Shabbos candelabra, but these were lamps that were used around the house on Shabbos, right? However, they wanted to extend the amount of oil that would drip into it. So they put in here an eggshell on the top, where there would have been normally like a hole or some kind of venting, and they filled the eggshell with oil, and they chipped a little hole in the bottom, and it would slowly drip in, so that as it dripped in, it was able to refill the reservoir. And this was able to be a candle lighting extender that could extend it. The problem and the concern was, we'll see in the Mishnah, is that you may want to tap into some of this oil. For example, let's say you wanted to, put some oil in your hair, put some
on your salad.
On your salad. Well, probably was more for other types of things. So what could you do? So you may end up either tipping it or using it or taking some of the oil out. Even if you put your fingers in to take the oil out, you're detracting from the amount of oil that's going to be illuminating, which is really a form of kibui. It's an indirect form of kibui. It's not putting the candle out now, but if the wood burned for 4 hours, now you took out 50 minutes worth of oil, it's only going to burn for 3 3/4 hours. So that's the concern. However, this picture shows some kind of contraption which this was built in. This was an attached kind of cup that was connected in some way. I'm not quite sure exactly how, but you see the guy's like he's unable to actually seem to remove it. It's really socketed in or glued in or plastered in that it can't be removed. So that would be okay. So if your concern was that you're going to take the oil out, this would not be possible to take it out because it was actually, set in such a way you would not be able to deal with it. The only way you could get the oil out probably is turn the thing upside down, which you surely wouldn't do because then you would actually turn the candle out. So that's one thing we're going to see. Then we're going to see in the Mishnah, hopefully we'll get to a second Mishnah today. This is a different form of a candle extender in which you have basically here 2 pans. Right? You see, you have the actual one pan, which is not really the pan, but you got the Aladdin's lamp menorah, and then you've taken a wick and you've attached one wick to the other. So the hydrostatic pressure, I guess, is that the correct term, Mr. Engineer?
Are the wicks connected?
Capillary action.
Is it one wick?
Yeah, it's one wick that goes from here to here.
Yeah. No, it's one wick that goes all the way to the front.
I don't believe so.
Then that has to be higher.
This has
Second
to be
one
higher?
has to be higher.
Why wouldn't you use the?
Well, you know what? As this goes down, this will get higher. That's exactly the point.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So it will work its way down.
Enough.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
That's true. So this needs to be a little higher, but as this burns down, this of course gets higher, and this keeps just.
It equalizes.
Why wouldn't it be one wick right to the end of the Aladdin's lamp?
It could be. I guess it could be.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if it
could be. I don't know if it really makes a difference. I don't know if it makes a difference or how easy it would be to thread it. But I don't. One way or the other, I don't think it's important. What the issue is, of course, in this contraption, you of course could take away this extender cup, and who would know? Well, not who would know, but really, you're not going to put it out directly. But you could be tempted to use it, take it away, and come back and put it back, or take it away and just use it, or something like that. And the same problem with here, it's going to present in this kind of situation itself.
So it's not really you're extinguishing the fire, but you are making it burn less.
That is considered extinguishing the fire. That's a form of kibui. It's not a kibui that's a radical kibui of blowing out the candle. That's considered kibui.
Would it be a grama?
I don't think so. I think it'd be something direct.
Because it's not direct, right? It isn't direct. It's.
I believe it. I think it is. Okay. I think it's more. I think it actually maybe more than just the Rabbanan is just suggesting. I believe it might be actually a malacha.
Okay. Because reducing the amount of time.
Like a Shabbos clock.
That it's going to.
Like a Shabbos clock.
That's right.
I don't mean to be, but it could be like a
You're not putting it out. You're not. It's still going.
Yeah, but if it would have gone for 4 hours,
now it'll go for
messing
3.
Around, now it's going for 3. So it's as if you put it out after 3 hours.
Right. And it's also that you had set this aside. It's also part of it has to you set this aside as a candle, so you're actually detracting from the candle, the oil, the fuel, and you're actually detracting from the fuel itself. So I believe it's really kibui min haTorah, at least a told of kibui min haTorah. So at any rate, so the issue is, of course, you don't have to do that. So we'll see there's a machlokas in the Mishnah because the concern is, there's no real concern with doing this. The concern is you might come to take away the oil, which would be a form of kibui. Right? As long as you don't, you're okay. So therefore, if it's attached, you shouldn't be a problem. But if it's not attached, we'll see a machlokas in the Mishnah in the Gemara about whether you can use this handmade contraption with the eggshell or the double pan when connected to the other. Okay, so the Mishnah is in the Chavtet Madbet, and it's the second long line. Lo yikov adam shvoferet shel beya v'yamalena shena. A person should not make a hole or perforate a shvoferet shel beya is the shell of the egg, and fill it with oil. V'yitnen al pi haner, and put it on the mouth of the ner. That's the example we showed you. B'shvil shetei min hatefes, in order that it should be dripping. And now that's one, so you can't use a shofar shabbat. Then the Mishnah says even if it's made of cheres. Now, what would be, in other words, you don't use an eggshell, but we're going to take a variation on this. Instead of using an eggshell, you're going to use a piece of pottery. So, what would be the difference between using pottery and using an eggshell? Well,
maybe the pottery is semi-permeable or something. I don't know.
So the answer is it's probably it's reused pottery. It may not be good pottery. You know, if they don't make pottery that's in this size, you're taking a shard of pottery that's probably been used for something else and now reusing it. Pottery in general was not able to be cleaned. Not to.
It was glazed.
Cheres is not. But cheres is not glazed.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But the glazed pottery, you can clean.
Yes, but unglazed pottery you couldn't.
Yeah.
So therefore, you could argue, possibly, you possibly may be able to argue, which you're not going to argue. Or at least we'll see in the Mishnah. Maybe there's another opinion that if I were to use cheres, there's no way that I'm going to use the oil that I put into it as the extender because it's already schmutzig. Okay, so in other words, think of you're taking in some kind of something that stood outside in the snow and you're going to put it now into use it for the oil. For oil, for lighting is fine. But the moment we said, what's the concern? I may pull some of the oil out of this because I want to kind of rub it on my skin. I want to make an ameliorant. I want to use it as a depilatory. I want to use it to shine my hair, shine my skin. I don't know, all these kinds of things. Right? Remember the women before they went to go see Achashverosh? They put all kinds of things to make them shiny. I like these, I guess, shiny like the bodybuilders, pictures you see. I don't know what they did. But at any rate, the bottom line is that would be less of a concern possibly for pottery. Comes along the Mishnah saying, no, you know what, you might still want to use it. It's dirty, but it's not that dirty. It's not like it's dirt. It's just whatever was there before, the remainders you can't get out of the pottery. Because, and once again, this, as Archie pointed out, it is permeable. So anything that was used before, they would have seeped in. It would be hard to remove completely. Okay. So again, lo yikav adam shavar shabei v'yad menel adam shevet ne'api there b'shei shem al tefes v'afilo hishacheres. In the second example, I know it's written like a v'afilo. You'll see the Gemara presents a separate example. Case number 2 is even if it's not a shofer shabei, it's really simply it's a piece of pottery of cheres. So who says this? The Tanakama, the Chachamim, Rabbi Yehuda Matam. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's okay because according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're not concerned what you're going to do. We figure that you're a good upgehit niyid. You'll remember not to. The same way you remember not to blow the candle out, you remember not to take the oil out of the candle to use for yourself. Okay? You know, for us it would be hard to remember. People who did this every Shabbos would remember. The Chachamim say, no, we'll make a gzeira. The gzeira is that Shem Yistapik Mimehimenu, you may tend to use some of the oil. So once again, no one is arguing about the fact that it's prohibited to take it out. The issue is, will you remember not to take it out, or you may forget. Aval, says the Mishnah, Aval Chibra Yotzim Etchila Mutam Shehu Kli Echad. But if you had a Yotzer as an artisan, Kine Kachomer Biyad HaYotzer, right, we say on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the Slichas. So if the artisan connected this type of contraption, like would have been in place of the Shvofer Shabea, or a piece of Cheres, was completely attached and couldn't be separated, Mitchila, in other words, before Shabbos it was pulled in that way, Mutar, you can then use it as an oil burning extender, Memneshu Kli Echad, because it's really one Kli. Okay? Next example, there's the second example of the two pans. Le'imali adam kara shel shemen v'itnena b'tzad haner. A person shouldn't fill up a bowl or I guess kara is more of a plate, like a flat plate of oil, and put it next to the nair. V'yitain rosh hapsila b'socha, and put the edge of the wick. And this, by the way, looks like Jack was saying, it could be the same wick that goes all the way into the fire wick itself. Put the end of the psila b'socha b'shvel sheitei shoaves, in order that it should be drawing from, I should say, from one to the other. Rabbi Yehuda Mata, Rabbi Yehuda is going to be Mata this. So it's the same achlokas really. There are 3 scenarios. One is using shvofer shabea, one is using cheres, and the third one is using the kara shel shemen next to the menorah itself. Looks like pretty much all the 3 things should be the same, correct? Question, comment? No? Good. Okay. So the Gemara simply says, well, gave us 3 examples. Why do we need all 3 examples? One's against Shvofer Shabea, Cheres, and the third example is about the actual Kara. Utzricha, says the Gemara, I need to have all 3 examples to tell me that in all 3 cases there's a machlokus between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Diyash mina Shvofer Shabea, because it only gave me the first example, which is about the eggshell. So I would say, Bahal Kami Rabbanan. In this case, the Chachamim would say that I cannot use this contraption of using the eggshell, the loose eggshell that's simply dripping in. Why? Because the eggshell was actually very clean. This looks like it was a new eggshell. I don't believe they reused eggshells, but eggshells were commonplace. Anytime you had an egg, you just simply blew out the egg. Anybody ever remember seeing back in the day when they used to blow out the eggs and use them in the sukkah? Never saw that?
My father did that.
This was an old European tradition. Before they invented plastic, they make birds or angels.
Birds.
And they would put like wings made of paper or very light materials. And to make the body of the bird, you wanted something light because it was hanging onto the sukkah, and you didn't want to be pulling down. They would blow out the eggshells from end to end, blow out the egg, and they had the eggshell, and that was the body of the bird. Okay, there's a chachma to doing it. Okay, and as long as it was small enough of a hole, it still maintained the integrity of what the forces that the eggshell could withstand. So at any rate, so this is in this case there was no short of eggshells. So this was clearly something that was not ma'us. Eggs are clean. Maybe yes, maybe no. But in those days they were considered clean, and therefore they could reuse this or re-find another eggshell every Shabbos. Aval chel shel cheres. But on the other hand, maybe cheres, which is the second example, the ma'isa, which is ma'us, which is despicable or disgusting because cheres gets reused and it becomes dirty, and whatever was used before is going to come out of the permeable pottery. Maybe the Chachamim will agree to Rabbi Yehuda that that's okay, because you're not going to use the oil from it. So if I only had the first example about Shvofer Shabeah, I wouldn't know about the cheres that even the Chachamim would disagree and say it's awesome. Maybe they would say it's okay. If I had the second example of cheres, so this is the reverse. So I would say, Bahal Kam Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe I'd say only in the case of Cheres would Rabbi Yehuda say it's permissible to do this contraption because Cheres is Ma'us. I'm not going to use it. Aval Behahi Ema Modlul Rabbanon. Maybe in the case of Shvafer Shabeah, maybe Rabbi Yehuda would agree to the Chachamim that you can't do it because Rabbi Yehuda only says you can do it when there's no concern you're going to use it. So there's less of a concern for Cheres than there is for Shvafer Shabeah. Okay, so that's 1 and 2. The third example is what? Third example is about the freestanding pan. V'yashmin and hanach tarte. If I had the first two examples of Shofar Shabeah and the case of Cheres, I would say Bahani Kamri Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Delo Mifsik. I would say that in those two cases, Rabbi Yehuda would say it's okay because you know what? You view it as one utensil. You view it as one item. So even though it's detachable, even though the eggshell can be removed, and even though the Cheres could be removed, but I'm not going to take it apart. I put it together. I put it that way for Shabbos. It looks to me like one candle, a candle with an extender built into it, even though it's removable. Aval but maybe the freestanding pan, the mifsaka, or mipaska, which is separate, which is pasuk. It's a separate freestanding pan. Ema modelahul rabban, and I would say maybe Rabbi Yehuda would agree to the Chachamim that you cannot do this, light it this way, because I would use it because it's such a freestanding structure. I would say, well, you know what, if I take off this pan and use the oil, I still really have a candle. I'm not touching the candle. All I got to do is yank out the wick and this end of the wick, and it's okay. So that I may say that Rabbi Yehuda would say is prohibited. Kamash Mlan, not so. And what's the reverse of this? V'yashminan bahahi. And if I only had the third example about the karash or shemen, bahi kami rabbanan. In that case, the chachamim say it is prohibited because it's freestanding. Avahani tarte. But maybe in the case of shvafer shabeah and cheres, emamodi leil Rabbi Yehuda, I would say they would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that you can do it, light it this way because it's one item. So tzrich, I need all three examples. Okay, fine. Very simple example. Okay, next piece of the Gemara. So the Mishnah had said that if the artisan had built this item into it, had created it, had welded it, had melded it, the extender into the actual lamp, it's okay. So Tana, we have a brisa that says something a little bit different. It doesn't talk about an artisan. It says im chibra. If you, the owner of this lamp, you are a little handy, or maybe you're not handy, you kind of rigged up some kind of contraption, besid or becharsis, with plaster or with mortar, you kind of attached it yourself, mutar. So the brisa says that you can do it yourself. It's a do-it-yourself item. The Mishnah seems to say, and that's the Gemara's question, V'anan tznan yotzer, v'anan yotzer tznan. Our Mishnah talked about having an artisan do it. And you can say that if an artisan does it, I'm not going to take it apart. If I do a rinky-dink kind of patch job myself, well, maybe I'll take it apart myself as well on Shabbos. So you see they're not the same. So the Gemara says, no, that is the same. My yotzer ke'en yotzer. What does it mean? The way we can reconcile the brisa, which looks like me doing it, is okay. And the Mishnah, which says you have an artisan doing it, if I do it like it's a permanent job like an artisan, then it's okay for me to use it.
But yotzer means a creator.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean you're a skilled creator.
A yotzer usually means a skilled creator. Kine ke'ari yotzer, kine ke'arachoma bi'ari yotzer. Kine anachnu b'yotcha. The same way you took the unformed material and the artisan, it's not me the artisan, it's the artisan who's got his pottery shop, the artisan who's got his clay shop, glass shop, and he shapes it, so you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you shape us. You, God, are the chief key artisan, skilled artisan in creating man and melding and molding man. So Yotzer actually seems to refer to someone who's skilled. But the answer is anybody can be skilled. And even semi-skilled is considered skilled. It's not that you have to have a shingle. You don't have to go set up a bazaar or some kind of flea market. You can make yourself do it yourself. So there's got to be something that's permanent enough that even if I do it, I'm not going to be able to take it apart. That's what it means, Kein Yotzer. So it's not a halach in an artisan. Maybe that's what you were saying, Michael. It's not a halach in an artisan. It's a halach in doing something that's going to be considered permanent. It's semi-permanent. I can't take it apart. Right. Okay? Okay, now, so we have this halacha that we learned about not using the shofar shalbeah because there's a gzeira may come to kind of use it, and the only one who says I can is Rabbi Yehuda. The assumption is we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, we paskin like the Chachamim. Therefore, all of these examples, I should not light a candle like this. Obviously, I can't take away the oil, but even if I don't, I may come to forget. So the gzeira is I can't build it this way. So the Gemara is going to bring a Maisa, which it looks like they went the other way, and then from the Maisa they're going to bring another Maisa that's really unrelated, but relates to the fact that you have to correct someone making a mistake. And then we'll see what we learn from this. Tanya, we have a brisa. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says, and this is the Rabbi Yehuda who is in the Mishnah, Pamachas, what happened? Shvaseinu or Shabseinu. We rested on Shabbos. We over Shabbos. Baliat Beit Nitza Belud. We stayed for Shabbos in the house of Nitza in Lud. Veheviu lanu shvoferet shalbeah, and they brought us this blown out eggshell. Umilunuho shemen v'nakvenuhu. We filled it with oil, and then we made a hole in it. V'hinichtuha al pianer, and then we put it over the nair. So who's telling the story over? Rabbi Yehuda. Now that's not such a big chiddush because Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah is the one who says you can do this. In fact, there are articles are written that sometimes the statements in the Mishnayos are based upon really edited versions of what the actual Maisa was. In fact, the Gemara many times brings down an example and says, no, it's not really true. This is the Maisa, and the Maisa was for a different reason. So it's not unreasonable that sometimes, as opposed to Rabbi Yehuda getting up and saying mutar, this was the example of Rabbi Yehuda or similar examples where they saw Rabbi Yehuda use it, they understood he said mutar. So that's not a chiddush. However, and here comes the chiddush. However, there were other people there. Havahaya sham Rabbi Tarfon v'zikenim v'lo amru lana davar. They were there and they said nothing to us. So they let it go. So Rabbi Yehuda says, you see, my opinion is correct, not because I said it, because all the Zakanim were up there in the house of Beit Nitza in Lud. So I'm right. And if I were wrong, they would have corrected me. So Amru Lo, so the Chachamim in our Mishnah, or someone similar to the Chachamim in our Mishnah said to him, Misham Raya, you're bringing a proof in this case of the Beit Nitza on Shabbos, Shani Beit Nitza, this reason Hain. In the case of in Beit Nitza, they were very careful. So even though while everybody else we would make a gzeira, in the case of Beit Nitza, they allowed certain things. The Chachamim weren't that concerned because they felt that Beit Nitza was so careful they would never slip into it and use the oil. A very unusual kind of response. It's an unusual kind of response because first of all, you don't normally find that there are exceptions. Maybe the Beis Hamikdash is an exception. Find the Kohanim or Zrizim. But in the house of this Beis Nitza, why was this suddenly some kind of exception that they felt they were Zrizim? So they were Zrizim, but so what? And the second thing is the Chachamim seem to have let it go, and they responded, yeah, we let it go because of that reason. Okay? So it's an unusual case, but what, by the way, do you see from this? The fact
exceptions when they want.
they made exceptions when they want. You could say that, but the impression is the Chachamim are saying that you Rabbi Yehuda are wrong, right? You know, the only reason you got the impression you're right is because no one corrected you, right? And it is an exception, okay? So they make exceptions when they want. But the fact that they didn't correct you out loud led you to a misunderstanding that you thought you're right. It's not really true. There may have been special circumstances. Now, we don't fully understand the special circumstances. But you'll see in a moment how erroneous this can be by not correcting someone, even if there are special circumstances, or maybe how bad it is to have special circumstances. But the bottom line is, the upshot of the story is, it was you, Rabbi Yehuda, were wrong, and you got the wrong impression that you thought you were right because no one corrected you. Does anyone disagree with that? That's the premise for this moment. Say it again. In other words, you, Rabbi Yehuda, thought you were right, but you're wrong. Why do you think you're right? Because no one corrected you, and not correcting you is wrong. Right? But whatever it is, they should have corrected you. So the Gemara says, the Gemara brings this Maisa. Now we have another Maisa that's based on this. The next Maisa has nothing to do with our case about lighting candles, but it has to do with another halach on Shabbos. Avin Siporna, this is the fellow's name, Avin Siporna, Garar or Girer Safsala Bilay the Shaisha. He dragged a Safsal, a bench, on a Ilyasa is a floor of Shaish of marble. Okay, now dragging a bench on a floor of dirt would be wrong because it would be choresh. You'd be making a some kind of furrow, right?
Not intended.
So you're right. It's not intended. So we're going to come talk about davar she'eino miskaven in a couple of minutes. It may be a davar she'eino miskaven. In some cases, if it's heavy or light, it may be a psik reisha. Right? Psik reisha may also have an implication if it's so heavy that I have to make a furrow, or maybe it's something light that I may or may not make a furrow. And by the way, pulling a bench was not only a problem in the backyard, it probably was a problem also in the house, because most houses had dirt floors. Correct. So, and making a furrow in a house may not be choresh, it would be which malacha? Anyone want to get? Bona, it would be bona.
Yeah. But this is marble paved upper chamber.
Right. As opposed to dirt floor.
Right, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Correct. Should
not be a problem.
So Marvin said scratching. It's not an issue of scratching. Okay, it's not scratching.
They catch it from the wife.
You probably catch it from the wife for rearranging the furniture as well. So the issue is not scratching the marble. This was considered hard marble, and this was whatever it was not scratching. The issue would be choresh on a dirt floor. But here's the issue. The issue is making an exception. Now, the same way that Beit Nitzah was an exception because we felt Beit Nitzah was not going to be using these things because they were so makbid, so Shayish, maybe Shayish should be an exception. But you're all shaking your head, you know it's not going to be an exception, because if I allow you to schlep this on Shayish on the floor, maybe you'll come to schlep it as well on your dirt floor. Right? So
it's a low plug, right?
So it might be like a low plug, or it might be part of the concern. Right now, by the way, if you're not going to make it, probably in our situation, we have so many floors that are made of wood or tile, it probably is not going to be a problem. But in those days, when most of the floors were made of dirt, it probably was more of a concern that this was the exception rather than the rule. Most people did not live with floors of shayish. This was something for royalty. Right? No one. For the heavy made no sense.
How do you build it?
I don't know. It looks like it's up on the second story. I don't know. Maybe thin shayish. You can make shayish in all different kinds of thicknesses.
I know, but you got mud. You're not going to, it's not stone.
I don't know.
Like a palace you might have for the regular person in the house.
I don't know. Thin, maybe some kind of overlay. Just a thin overlay on top of whatever was underneath it with wood or something. Okay. So look at the story. So once going back and read the story. Abin Siparna Garar Safsla Bilay the Shisha Le'ela mi Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar. So this word Le'ela, like Le'ela means in front of, really. Or I'm not sure. It's a very unusual term, but you'll see it comes up again in this Amud. So it means like in front of, like he was higher. He could see what was going on, so it was under his supervision, so to speak. He was I don't say he was actually supervising, but he was watching what was going on. So Amalei, so Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar says to Avin Siparna, Ishtuki lach. If I say nothing, if I keep quiet, like the friends of Rabbi Yehuda, okay, like the rabbis in the Rabbi Yehuda story, nafik minei churban, then a churban will come out of this, a destruction will come out of this.
Maybe he didn't want to embarrass him in public.
Who Rabbi Yehuda?
Maybe Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elijah didn't want to.
He is saying that. He's actually saying this. He says, I don't want to keep. He says, I got to tell you, Abin Siparna, I can't keep quiet, because if I keep quiet, everybody watching you is going to think this is okay. Now I know it's okay because you've got a flaw that's shayish. But most people are not going to realize the difference between the two, and guess what? They're going to say that we saw Abin Siparna schlep the safsal, and Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar watched him, and he said nothing, and they're not going to know the specific details. And the same way that Rabbi Yehuda came out with the erroneous impression that the halacha is like him because no one corrected him, and that's not true. They only didn't correct him because maybe they didn't want to embarrass Beit Nitzah, because Beit Nitzah was Rizim. So therefore, I can also, if I say nothing, everybody will come to make a mistake. You see the analogy so far? You may want to disagree with some of the small points, but the basic stuff seems to work. So gzeira ilaya deshaisha atu ilasa di alma. So the same way I make the floor that's made of shayish, I'm going to is prohibited to do so, just because similar to the other floors of the rest of the world, which are made of materials that will be scratched, that will be furrowed into it. Okay. That's the story. So you see that you can't let people get away with things without saying it because other people may be watching it. Yeah.
It's like Marit Ayin to a certain extent.
Or in this case, Maris Ayin, or yes, Maris Ayin or worse. Correct. Yes. Right. Okay? Or making it very clear that you disapprove of it. Right? In other words, and maybe kind of coming back, not to say I'll let it go and then speak to the person privately later to correct them, because no one else will be there at that time. And we're usually not concerned about this. We're usually more concerned about busha and embarrassing people and so forth. But here, I guess this situation, times were different. Okay, similar story. Next story. Reish Knishta de Batzra. So the Reish Knishta means the Rosh HaKnesses, Rosh Beis HaKnesses. This was the guy who looks like he was actually a teacher. Rashi says he was a Motzi Miyashiv Talmidim V'Tinokos. So he probably was actually a teacher's assistant. He was whoever the teacher was who was teaching the Dardike, the little kids. This was the assistant who set the kids down in there. He probably kind of made sure there was law and order in the classroom when the kids got out of hand, or brought them in, or maybe he was the school bus driver. I'm not sure. Whatever it was. So this is Reish Knishta and Batza. In other words, he's not necessarily. He's called Reish Knishta. You think he's like the chief of the community. Nah, not really. That's why he makes a mistake. Reish Knishta de Batzra, Garar Safsala Le'elam Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah. So he schlepped a safsal, and once again, here's the same le'ela in front of, or and higher than him, above him, was Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah. So Amalei. So Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah said to him, Amalei, come on, who are you following? Rabbi Shimon? Are you following Rabbi Shimon, who allows a person to be gorer kitei safsal on the floor because Rabbi Shimon holds that davar she'eino miskavein is mutar? You're following Rabbi Shimon. Come on, Rabbi Shimon. Eimar diyamin Rabbi Shimon. Begedolim dlo efshar. Bektanim miyamar. When does Rabbi Shimon allow the person to schlep the bench? It's an interesting kind of thing because we don't find this in other places. Only when it's big, and you have no other choice. Okay. Only when, but if it's bektanim miyamar. However, if they're small, then you shouldn't even Rabbi Shimon would say you shouldn't move them. Okay, so in other words, he's correcting, Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah is correcting the overseer, what he was doing was wrong. So according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, let's see how this goes now. Let's see if we can set this up. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah, let me just back this up a step. Actually here, there's a handout. I'm not sure if the handout's going to help you or make it more confusing for you, but you can take a look at it. It's the second chart on the page.
I find it amazing. Rabbi Shimon would allow, in certain circumstances, the dragging.
Because he holds his davar she'eino miskavein. Because he holds his davar she'eino miskavein.
There's not enough.
There's not enough. There should be about 10 of them. Okay. Okay, good. All right, there should be enough.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
there are 9 people in this room and there are 10. So if one was short, then someone's got more than one. There you go. All right, here we go. We're good. Let's go back to this. So there's a machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon about davar she'eino miskaven. If I do something and I don't intend to do it, is it permissible or prohibited? Okay, so the intention is not to make a furrow. The intention is for me to kind of schlep this safsol. So that's a machlokas that comes up in a number of places in Shas, and one of the examples that's given is about safsol. Here we introduce something new, according to Rav Yirmiyah. According to who? Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah, correct? We didn't get to Ula yet, right? So according to Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah, and in this chart he's called Rav Yirmiyah, but he's called Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah in the Gemara. It's probably different than the Rav Yirmiyah that we find in other places. According to Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah, even Rabbi Shimon, who says that you can schlep the safsol, it's only where you have no other choice. You can schlep it, but if it's a small safsol, then you're not allowed to schlep it.
You have to pick it up.
You have to pick it up. Even though really it looks like it's permissible. I don't understand fully why. But if you look in the middle chart, the second chart on the page, so what do you have here? You have machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and between Rabbi Shimon. And the machlokas, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, is going to be, what we've learned so far, is according to Rabbi Yehuda, well, let's see how this is actually going to be a confusing chart, I see. This is probably not a good chart to give you, okay? According to Rabbi Shimon, a safsol katan, even Rabbi Shimon will say you can, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah will say that even according to Rabbi Shimon, it's asur to schlep a safsol katan, which you can pick up.
It says vikal. It's on light.
Yeah, that's what it means.
No, I'm just saying.
Small and light, not just small and heavy, correct. Small is small and light, and big is big and heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, the machlokas actually between Rabbi Yirmiyah and according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda, is going to be strictly about safsol gadol. So according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, in a safsol gadol, Rabbi Yehuda is going to say it's asur to schlep it, and Rabbi Shimon will say it's mutar to schlep it. But according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, in a safsol katan, it's asur. Both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. So far, so good. Okay, whose opinion is this? Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah. So in other words, so what happened here? So in the case we had with the Reish Kanishta, he was schlepping this safsol, and Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah said to him, you think you follow Rabbi Shimon? Even Rabbi Shimon would not schlep this safsol, which is a small safsol. It makes sense, by the way, he was in charge of little kids. He was schlepping a safsol for little kids. It probably was like a kindergarten stool or some sort.
He should have lifted it up.
He should have lifted it up, okay? Now, the Gemara says, and here's what gets a little complicated. Pligi de'ula, Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah's interpretation of when Rav Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon argue disagrees with Ula. The Amar Ula, the Ula says, Machlokes biktanim ava bigdolim divrei kol mutar. So Ula says the other way around, that according to Ula, once again, if you go back to this chart, according to Ula, which I can't do it backwards, according to Ula, the machlokes is specifically about safsol katan. The Rabbi Shimon would say for safsol katan you can move it, and Rabbi Yehuda would say you can never move any safsol, even a safsol katan you can't move. However, when you come to a safsol gadol, even Rabbi Shimon, I got this correct? A safsol gadol, even Rabbi Yirmiyah, even Rabbi Yehuda would say you can move it. Right. According to Ula, the way Ula understands the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is specifically about safsol katan, but a safsol gadol, even Rabbi Yehuda would say it's permissible to move it. So to kind of cut this, to make this a little more clear than what this chart is, according to Rabbi Shimon, the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is specifically about a big safsol, but not about a small safsol. According to Ula, the machlokas between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda is specifically about a small safsol, but a big safsol, everybody would agree you can. Okay, so that's the key that you need to know from this. So we're going to leave now the case of this Reish Kanishta and just hold on to the fact that you have two ways to understand the machlokas between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. Is that so far clear? We'll say it again to make sure we don't lose this, make sure I don't lose the trend of this. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah, the machlokas is specifically about the Safsal. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah, the machlokas is specifically about Safsal Gadol. According to Ula, the machlokas is specifically about Safsal Katan. Okay, I'll try it again. According to Rav Yirmiyah, the machlok is about Safsal Gadol, and a Safsal Katan, everybody's going to say is Aser. According to Ula, the machlok is about Safsal Katan, and about Safsal Gadol, everybody will say it's Mutar. I'm making a big deal about this because the next line, the Gemara is going to ask a question that it looks like they argue in both cases. And the Pashtus is they argue both in Katan and Gadol. Okay. So the Gemara, so leave the Reish Kanishta guy on the side and just remember these two opinions. So read again. So Masiv Rav Yosef. Now Rav Yosef asks the question. Here's what he quotes. He quotes a brisa, another brisa. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Gorer Adam Mita Kisei V'Safsal Ubavad Shleis Kavin Lasos Charetz. Okay, so we quote a brisa about Rabbi Shimon. This is normally the brisa about Rabbi Shimon that they quote. That a person can schlep three things: a mita, a kisei, and a safsal.
Basically anything.
Now, which of these three is the biggest item?
Bed.
The bed. Which is probably the smallest item?
Chair. Chair. Or maybe
wait,
the bed shot. But probably a chair.
I don't know. Probably Kisei and Safsal are both small. I'm not sure which of the two is smallest. But clearly Mita versus the other two are Kisei is definitely small and Mita is definitely big. Right? It's hard to imagine a small bed for a normal sized person. It's hard to imagine, I guess you can come up with a king size chair, but most chairs are much smaller. So you see that Rabbi Shimon says that you can do this even for a small one and for a large one. Now here's the premise, and Rashi puts this in. This is probably the hardest part of the Gemara. That if this is the brisa about Rabbi Shimon, the fact that Rabbi Shimon has to go out of his way to say that you can schlep a small thing and a big thing, means that Rabbi Yehuda, why does he have to go out and say both a mita and a kisei and a safsal? Because it means he's arguing in Rabbi Yehuda on all three. If Rabbi Shimon was not arguing in Rabbi Yehuda, then he wouldn't have to enumerate all three. That's the logic that Rashi says is missing here in this Gemara statement. I'm not sure the logic is ironclad, but I'm going to work with the logic for this moment.
Problematic for Ula as well.
So it's going to be problematic for both guys. But the premise of the question is that it looks like Rabbi Shimon says you can be gorer, mita, kisei, v'safsal, big, medium, and small. Little bear, big bear, and papa bear, mama bear, and baby bear, right? And the assumption is at this point that Rabbi Yehuda would argue with Rabbi Shimon on both sides. So the Gemara says, Katanim gedolim, v'katanik tanim. Rabbi Shimon's talking about big things, and he's talking about small things. He talks about a mita, he talks about kisei and safsal. Kashil tzavayu. It's a kasha for both Ula and a kasha for both Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah. Because according to both Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah and Ula, the machlokas is only about one of these two cases. It's either machlokas according to Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah is only the machlokas about Kis Safsal Gadol. According to Ula, the machlokas is only about Safsal Katan. So this seems to imply that it's both. So one's going to leave the Reish Knesses guy on the side. Let's just deal with trying to resolve Ula and Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah. So the Gemara says, here's how to resolve it. Ula Mataris Latame, Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah Mataris Latame. So the two of them will explain it according to their ways. Once again, what will Ula say? Ula says the machlok is about Safsal Katan. Ula Mataris Latame. Mita dumya de kisei. Okay, when it says that Rav Shimon says mita kisei v'safsal, what kind of mita is he talking about? This is like a very cheap answer, by the way. What kind of mita is he talking about? It's like it mentions kisei and safsal. What kind of mita? A little baby bed for baby bear. Okay, same way the chair is small, so there's a small bed. I don't know, a fold up bed, a small bed, a high riser or something. Well, maybe that's not big. That's too big. A futon, okay? And Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah, when we tires l'tamei, how was Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah going to follow through? What's he going to say? Same thing, only backwards. Kisei dumya the mita. He's going to say, kisei is going to be like the mita, the same way the mita is big, so the kisei we're talking about is a kisei for Og Melech HaBashan, okay? For some big guy, a big heavy chair. Because a chair could go both ways, and I guess a safsel could go both ways as well. The only reason the case of the Reish Knista, that safsel was small, is because he was in charge of little kids, and he was moving a little bench for little kids. So therefore, both of them can be resolved, both can actually explain the machlokes, but each of them into what we have this price about Rabbi Shimon. By the halacha, I believe we pass on Rabbi Shimon as a machlokes, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda is really in all different sizes. So this whole, the interpretation of Ra'ula and Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah does not come up in the other places, in the other discussions. We normally say that we're arguing about both things. The machlokas is going to be a machlokas about davar she'eino miskavein. The one thing the Gemara says in other places is that if it's going to be a psik reisha, it's a psik reisha that maybe even Rabbi Shimon would agree it's aser. So in other words, a heavy item does not have to be a psik reisha. So for example, if I were to schlep a chaise lounge over my backyard, or a lawn chair over my backyard. If it's like summertime when the ground is hard, not necessarily psik reisha, I'm going to make a chritz. Just may happen to be part of the yard may be harder, part may be softer. It may be that day is harder, the next day after rain is softer. But if it's right like springtime when the earth is very soft, that would be a psik reisha, I'm going to make a charetz. So it may be that Rabbi Shimon would say that something that will definitely make a psik, everybody know the term psik reisha? Psik reisha means it has to happen. That will definitely make a charetz, even if it's davar she'eino miskavein, Rabbi Shimon will say it's aser if it's a psik reisha. That's the Gemara in I think the 7th parak and the 12th parak, I forget.
But if it's not a psik reisha,
then Rabbi Shimon would say it's mutar, and we pass like Rabbi Yehuda that you can't do it. Okay? So don't try it at home. Okay? And it's a problem. The biggest problem would be backyards. Lawn chairs.
But in the case of a shayish, that it would. There would be no question.
So as far as I know, the shaish is not a problem, right? I'm saying this Gemara is not a halachic Gemara, correct? The issue, as far as I'm aware of, that moving something heavy on shaish or your home inside, you have tile or you have whatever you have wood. Even wood is not going to. You have to really work hard. Or carpet, the same thing. You're not going to pull carpet out.
No, you make a mark in it. That doesn't count.
It's not really a mark in the carpet. It comes up.
Okay.
That's not a charitz.
I guess not.
You're talking about choresh here, right? Or like you make a little furrow.
Oh, okay, sorry. Mixed up.
A little furrow.
Right, so I would think in the house it shouldn't be a problem. The problem is where you're outside.
Yeah, in the lawn,
In the lawn. We don't have dirt floors inside, okay? Or something that's really heavy, maybe if you're on a wood floor, could make a charitz. So it's really heavy. I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Something heavy furniture. So therefore, consequently, in the backyard, pick up your lawn chair.
So you said this is not a halachic piece of Gemara because of the first case.
Well, I'm saying in terms of the other, I'm saying it's not a halachic piece of Gemara about Gorer Mita V'Safsal is what I meant to say. Not about the lighting the candles.
Right.
Okay, because the part about Mita Gorer Mita V'Safsal has to deal with exceptions to the rules about schlepping and about not telling people they're doing things wrong. But as far as I know from other Gemaras, that it seems to be not a problem if it's going to be a floor of shayish. That's what I mean. It's not a halachic Gemara. So if you have a normal floor, you can't schlep things on the floor if it's not going to make a charetz. Okay? The real issue is the backyard, or front yard, or any yard, which is going to be soft. Okay, at any rate, this is Machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. We have one more piece to kind of wrap this up here in this Gemara. Once again, it's different but similar. This is Masiv Rava. Everybody with me? It's 2, 4, 6 lines on the bottom of the page. Masiv Rava is 7 lines on the bottom of the page, and the first one, next line is Mochrei. See it? See it? Yes? Okay, so here's the case. You cannot wear garments made of shatnez. We all agree with that? That's not a discussion. Okay? Okay. Now.
Except if you're a Kohen Gadol.
Wearing your begadim, correct. Or you are wearing tzitzis that have tchelis on them, correct. But normally you cannot. You actually, that's not really a good thing, the good proper way to say it. I can't wear a beged of shatnez to get benefit from it. Alright? So the question is, what about people who are selling wares of clothing, and they were selling to Jews and non-Jews? There's nothing wrong with selling shatnez to a non-Jew. So, can I sell, and I can sell to a non-Jew, I'm not worried it's going to get back on the market. But being a peddler, I would want to carry all my stuff on my back.
Oh.
Okay? So the issue is that's the issue. Or, you'll see in a moment, there were different ways to carry it, not to put it on my back. So the difference that's going to come up is going to have an implication of where I could do something in one case, but I couldn't do something in another case. So it relates to this go rear, the safsel, big safsel, small safsel, and so forth. So Masiv Rava. So Rava asks a question on, figure out which of the two opinions is he asking the question. We'll see when we get to it. Mochre ksus, mochrim kedarkan, ubavashli eskavin b'chama b'nei achama, ub'kshamim b'nei gshamim. So the people who sell different fabrics, or maybe even garments, can sell them normally, can mochrim kedarkan, which means that they would put them over their back. This is the way they showed off their garments. The best way to see how the garment looks is to wear it. So they're not really wearing it because they want to kind of have the garment, they're really wearing it as being a billboard. So they can wear it kedarkan, as long as they don't have kavana in the heat to use the garment to protect them from the sun, or to use it in the rainy season to protect them from the rain. But as long as they're not using it to get benefit from it, there's nothing wrong with actually wearing it and showing it off. However, the tznuim, those who were more careful, tznuah does not mean modest here, about modesty like we think in terms of showing off the body. It means that people who were more modest in terms of trying to keep mitzvos, mavshilim b'makel lachoreihem. They put it on a stick and behind them. So I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, if it was like a stick, or they may have had some hanger, some kind of shape that could show off the garment.
Like a stick with a cross.
Like a stick with a cross or some kind of...
Say cross.
So whatever it was, in other words, there is a way to do it. It's a little more complex, a little more difficult, but it was not the end of the world. And if you were like these people who would snoo him, they would do it. So what do you see from this? So you see that this is very similar by extension, says the Gemara. It's a bit of a stretch according to Rabbah, but Rabbah feels that you can ask it. This, who's the kasha going to be? It's going to be kasha in Rabbi Yehuda Rabbah. According to Rabbi Yehuda Rabbah said that the machlokas between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yirmiyah was where?
Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon.
I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon was only about was about the Kesafsel Gadol. But a Safsel Katan, even Rabbi Shimon, who normally says you can do Davar Shein Miskavein, if you could pick up the bench, you could pick up the bench. That was the case we had with the Reish Knishna. He was schlepping the bench, and Rabbi Yehuda Rabbah and Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah said to him, "Who you think you're doing it's okay because you're following Rabbi Shimon, who says Davar Shein Miskavein is okay." Even Rabbi Shimon says it's also if you can actually pick it up. So Zaytos, what do you see from this? What comes out of this? That the same way that you could carry the begadim and put them on this pole behind your back. So v'chila miskas. So we'll read again. V'hahacha the evshel emeved b'tznuim. The same. Here you could do follow the tznuim the chiktanim dom. It's like the small safsel, which is possible. V'chila miskaven shoy Rabbi Shimon lechadchila. And it looks here that according to Rabbi Shimon, it was permissible for these people, according to Rabbi Shimon, to be mochri ksus mochrim kedarkam. According to Rabbi Shimon, this is the brisa that we're bringing from Kilayim, according to Rabbi Shimon. Even though, and they didn't have to follow the tznuim. So Gemara says Tiyufta Rabbi Yehuda Rabbah Tiyufta. So this is actually a question of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbah, and the Gemara has no real answer on it. And Rabbi Yehuda Rabbah goes down. Okay, that's the end of the Gemara. Okay, all right. Now let's. We have time to start the next Mishnah. We actually have time to start the next Mishnah, get into the Gemara, maybe get up to Yaganta, which will start for next week. Okay, next Mishnah. The next Mishnah is called Melacha She'ein Tzricha L'Gufa. Okay, we had until now Davar She'ein Miskavein. What's Melacha She'ein Tzricha L'Gufa? I do a Melacha, but not for the actual act of doing the Melacha. In fact, the case of schlepping the Gorer Mita Safsel, Kisei V'Safsel, is also a case of Davar She'ein Miskavein. It's also a case of Davar She'ein Miskavein. It's also a case of Melacha She'ein Tzricha L'Gufa, because I don't really want to dig the ditch. What do I really want to do? I want to move the bench. So Davar She'ein Miskavein is I'm doing a malacha for a different purpose. So for example, another example, if I want to dig...
won't be disturbed for sleeping.
But that's what we're going to come to disturbing for sleeping, putting out the candle, so the person doesn't disturb for sleeping. So another case of Davar She'ein Miskavein for like digging a ditch is I want to use the dirt for something. So I dig the ditch, and I'm using the dirt for something else. So that's not really digging a ditch. It's digging a ditch, but it's called malacha she'en tzrich l'gufa.
Or for example, a destructive act, right? Would be malacha she'en tzrich l'gufa.
Yeah, okay. Or even for a constructive act for a different purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. So a number of examples. So malacha she'en, now even if it's not permissible, even if it's not prohibited min Torah, it's prohibited min Rabbanan. Okay. Malacha she'en tzrich l'gufa, we normally say. So the following, this is the fundamental basis for the following Mishnah. Machabes in there, you'll recognize these Mishnahs all across by Mehmet Leikin. You blow out the candle, you put out the candle because you're afraid because of Nachrim, who are like we once had these people, the Parsaim, the Chabari, who you couldn't use fire. Remember we learned Hanukkah? We had this once. Someone say you do remember this. The Zoroastrians, right? These people who they controlled fire, and the concern was, of course, that during their holidays you could only use the fire in their Avodah Zarah places, and you couldn't use it anywhere else. The concern was about Neros Chanukah, especially Chanukah comes out, I guess, when one of the festivals came out, which is probably at the winter solstice, when they wanted to show they controlled the fire. So the same thing would be also with Shabbos candles. You want to blow out the candles because you're afraid because of these nachrim, and if they saw lights burning, they would come and do all kinds of bad things to you. They list him.
Wouldn't it be the opposite? When you leave lights on, they wouldn't come? I don't know, like
you were not allowed to have lights in your house.
Oh, because of robbers.
I'm up to the robbers. First I will deal with the Chabarim.
I'm sorry.
In other words, now the next thing is, and this is what Archie's talking about, the next line is about the listim, you put off the lights. When Archie wants to know is, aren't you better off having more lights?
That's what I do at home. When I go away, I leave the lights.
They know exactly that you're gone because they see the lights that are going off and on in your house. Okay.
It's got a random function. I don't know.
So these look like listim that want to clean out people, not clean out the houses. People didn't have too many assets.
Okay.
So if they see people in the house, they say they're good sitting ducks.
Maybe robbers like for slaves.
Maybe robbers for slaves, but robbers just for money.
Okay.
Whatever it is. So these were listim, these were highwaymen, listim are armed robbers, by the way.
Okay.
So they're armed robbers, they want to hold up people. So therefore, if they can't see you, they're not going to come into your house. Or mibnei ruach ra, the person is, he's bedeviled. And once again, you would argue the other way around, light would be more of a calming influence. People suffer from light deprivation.
Depression, yeah.
Right, depression, you get depressed from being in dark. And people have SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Right, but this looks like apparently by being in the darkness, this was calmed the person down. There are people who have sensory affective disorder. They put them into a place with a lot of flashing lights, a lot of loud noises. They go crazy. And they have to go into quiet places. And maybe this is the type of person that it is, a ruach ra that we're talking about. So anyways, once again, it was all kinds of bright, and he started having a meltdown, so they have to put the lights out for him. Migraine headache. Okay, I'm not sure that's ruach ra. Or next, that may be the chola. Mibnei chola sheishans, for chola to sleep. In all of these cases are potter. Your potter, we usually say potter avalasta. We'll see if it might be mutter in this case, but this is not sure. They're not going to be chayiv. Chasal in there, if you want to save, for the oil. In other words, or you're afraid it's going to go bad, or you're afraid you're going to use up the oil, or if you put it out now, you can retain the wick for another time. So chasal in there, chasal Hashem, and you want to save the nair is the actual Ladin's lamp. The shemen is the oil, and kachasal psila, you want to save the wick. So all these cases are cases where something's going to go wrong if you let it burn down. Maybe if you let it burn down, it'll crack the cheres, it'll discolor the cheres, and the shemen will get used up. You want to save it, or you want to save the wick. So chayiv in these kind of cases, you're chayiv a korban chatas. Rabbi Yosef poter b'chulon. Rabbi Yossi says you're potter chutz min apsila mimnei shusei pecham. Rabbi Yossi says you're potter, and we'll have to see the reason in the Gemara why Rabbi Yossi says potter in all these cases, because it's a malacha. It's malacha she'en tzrich l'gufa, except for psila, except for putting out the wick. Why? Because what's with the wick? Mimnei shusei huosei pecham. Because in making the wick, putting out the wick, you can actually make charcoal. And the charcoal is something that is actually something positive. So some of the Mefarshim point out this is if we had this the other week about men lighting the candles for their wives on Erev Shabbos. Yes, you all do it.
Pre-lighting.
Pre-lighting. And why are you supposed to pre-light it?
Because you're a part of the mitzvah. You get part of the mitzvah.
Well, what do you do by pre-lighting it?
You make it easier to light.
Because when you singe, we saw this in the previous Gemara, when you singe the wick, it makes it easier for it to catch.
But it's only a Hungarian minhag.
Is it?
And it doesn't really apply to the modern candles, which are really set to run on their own. Okay. Okay, you guys, you Hungarians, will take it out in the back alley. Okay. All right. I told you,
So, but you.
I do candles every Friday night.
Okay.
Well, I pointed out to my wife that they actually burn better because, the ones that they stick into the holders, they have these long wicks. If you singe them down, you never get them to light it. She finally agreed, but I have to put them into the holders. I don't singe them though, but really, so the assumption, by the way, is that when you singe the wicks, you are making them improved. So consequently, so pechem usually means about making charcoal. So back in the day, having charcoal was considered something good because I guess they would use it and would hold the heat in if you lit it, almost like charcoal briquettes. Today, but the Mepharshim also point out it can actually be even for a light, for a regular psila, that you're actually, by putting it out, you're making it better for the next time around. So it is there somewhat of a constructive purpose. Should we try the next week's Gemara? We got 2 minutes. Okay, let's do the Gemara. We can do about 6 lines, okay? Then next week we can get right into the Agadata. Woohoo! So the Gemara says on the top of the page, Midakatani Sefer Chayav, seeing that the end of the Mishnah says that if you're concerned about this is Lamed Amal Alf. Yeah, I know it's a strange page, okay? It's good before you wake you up, okay? So because the end of the Mishnah tells us that if you chinsi on the light, you're chayav, what do we see? Shmamina Rabbi Yehuda. This teaches us that it's Rabbi Yehuda, the davar she'ena miskavein is chayav. So the Gemara says if davar she'ena miskavein is chayav, so reishav maya sikna. So what kind of chol are we talking about in the beginning of the Mishnah? In other words, I see from the fact that not Davar Shem is Kavan, the Malach Hashem, thank you, Malach Hashem Tzricha Lagufa is Chayav, because I'm using it for a different purpose, and not the purpose of what the Malach is, I'm still going to be Chayav. So what's the case in the beginning of the Mishnah? So, if we're dealing with a Chol Sheish Bo Sakana, a really sick person, it's a Sakana if I don't turn the light out for him, so you're going to say, of course, Mutar, Mi should have said Mutar, what does it say? Potter. If I'm dealing with Chol Shein Bo Sakana, then I don't have to really put the light out. He's just a regularly sick person. You know what? I don't have to do everything for a sick person. I don't have to do. So he's not Sakana. So Chayim Chatas mi boil. I shouldn't say it's Potter. Should say I'm Chayim Chatas. So what kind of chol am I talking about? So the Gemara says Liolam b'chol sheish bo Sakana. Really, we're dealing with a very sick person. Uvidin hud lisnei mutar. Really should have said mutar. What was the beginning of our Mishnah? Said Mechabes nev neishum misyom neinochem neilistim neirochvam neichola shishon Potter. Remember when I read Potter, I told you it might be mutar. So really, it should have been mutar. I did the boilam is the sefer chayav tonanami reisha Potter. Okay, it really should have said mutar, except the end is it says chayav. So I wanted to maintain the parallelism between the end of the Mishnah and the beginning of the Mishnah. So I said, so it's really dealing with a chol hashem bo sakana. Okay, and that becomes the conclusion of how to understand this Mishnah. And now we simply have 2.5 lines to explain an errant brisa. The Hadatani Rabbi Yoshia, and now we have another brisa, not our Mishnah, which says in Bishvil Achol Sheishan Lo Yichabe Vimkaba Potter Avalaser. We have another brisa that says it was for a chola to sleep. You shouldn't put it out, and if you put it out, you're Potter Avalaser. So that's not, what kind of chol are we talking about there? Our Mishnah, which should be saying mutar because of chol sheish bo sakana. What this brisa that says Potter clearly says Potter means Potter Avalaser, and says Potter Avalaser. What are we talking about? Hahu says the Gemara, Hu b'chol shein bo sakana. That's the chol shein bo sakana. If it's a chol shein bo sakana, and why should it not be chayav? So the Gemara says, U Rabbi Shimon he. And this brisa of Rabbi Yoshai is following the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that says davar shein malacha shein tzricha lagufa is Potter. Right? This is a chol shein bo sakana. I don't have to put it out, but I'm really not putting it out for the candle. I'm putting it out for the chol shein bo sakana. So it's Potter aval aser. Our Mishnah is talking about a chol sheish bo sakana. Really should be mutar to put it out. It only says Potter because they want to keep the parallelism of lashon between Potter and Chaim itself. Okay, stop here for just one half second. I'll just give you the trailer for next week. The trailer for next week, the Gemara is going to ask, why is it that you're allowed to put out a candle for a chol sheish bo sakana? You and I will assume that's a davar pashit. Someone asked the question, and Rav Tanchum, the Min Nevi, gets up and gives a whole drasha. it looks like we'll see this, and the drasha goes on for pages and pages, not actually one page, but it's really it's an agadic kind of drasha about Shlomo and about other people. Then at the end of the drasha, he comes back and answers the guy's questions. So you'll see it gets a very big tangent, but the question that was asked, and it looks like the guy asked the question right before he began giving the shir, and he used this as the opener to run into a tangent, which was probably an agadic homily before he got into the real halachic shir itself. So that'll be this very extended piece of Agadah that's going to talk about David and Shlomo and a lot of other people, Koheles and so forth, and I think you'll enjoy it. So please come for next week. Have a great week.